the Lantius Empire stands out among other maritime powers due to its prosperity and unique, deeply rooted culture. The descendants of the ruling house that laid the foundations of the future state have been renowned for their exceptional magical abilities since ancient times. For many years now, they have been ruling continuously in the Lantius Empire, and one of these days, someone cautiously asks His Majesty whether the report about the fire in the east has reached him. The man replied that he had received the report and had also heard that his interlocutor had personally visited the scene. He then added, after a moment, that fortunately, the fire was minor and was quickly contained. Afterwards, the man says with relief that, thank God, everything turned out well, and admits he's genuinely happy with the outcome. He claims he also contributed by partially restoring the forest, however. Everything could have been much more effective if His Majesty himself had gone there and created rain. Fortunately, Lantius is a place where the Emperor uses his great power solely for the good of the people. In this palace, people can communicate through pipes while in different rooms. At that very moment, one of the maids receives an urgent order. She immediately screams, ordering the maids to prepare more roast duck for the imperial palace, because the kitchen is overwhelmed and they need to hurry. One of the girls burns herself in a hurry and almost drops a pot of soup, but at that very moment, someone intercepts it from her hands. The maid is asked if everything is all right, and she replies that she is, then thanks the lady. Another maid rushes in with dishes and shouts for the others to move aside. However, a moment later the dishes fly out of her hands, and the head maid screams indignantly, asking what the new girl is doing. She makes it clear that even a year's rent would not be enough to cover the cost of the broken plates, and at that moment, the main character picks up the dishes and realizes that this is her new reality. A week has already passed since she started working here as a maid. A little later, the girls find themselves in the bedroom and are relieved to finally be free. One of them admits that everything is exactly as she expected, as the palace kitchen is truly stunning. Another complains that her whole body aches, and just looking at her poor legs tells you how tired she is, so a day off wouldn't hurt. The main character thinks she's been working hard all her life and still has plenty of strength left. Meanwhile, another maid asks if anyone has managed to spot the crown prince, as he seems to be glowing. They tell her they've only seen his back. The main character thinks she'll never get used to this atmosphere. Then one of the maids turns to her and thanks her, saying that if it weren't for her, she would have lost her salary for a whole month. Another confirms this and admits she was really scared back then because of the plates. Yet another asks where the lady worked before, since she had already thought she was in the circus. The main character replies that she did not work in the circus and in fact came from a rather respectable place where everything was almost the same as in the palace. One of the maids asks incredulously if this is true and if the place was as vast as the imperial palace. Another remarks that the heroine is not from around here, and upon reflection, she even has a slight accent. The main character wonders who pulled her tongue in the first place, and realizes that now she doesn't even know what to answer. Suddenly, all the girls hear someone sobbing, turn around, and notice another lady. One of the maids immediately asks Sarah what happened, wondering what she did wrong. The red-haired lady also asks what happened and if anything serious has happened. The fair-haired maid explains that Sarah was cleaning the Empress's palace and was harshly reprimanded by the head maid. Besides, she said Sarah was lucky. Her Majesty hadn't found out about it, otherwise she'd be in trouble. At that moment, one of the ladies remarked that the rumors were true after all. The main character asks what rumors exactly they are talking about, and one of the ladies replies that they are about Her Majesty. They say she's incredibly picky, and the lady wonders if Paresa hasn't heard about it. The redhead claims she overheard the maid's conversation in the kitchen just yesterday. Another maid adds that even the gardener was fired the other day, supposedly because Her Majesty didn't like the smell of the flowers in the garden. Yet another says she heard the imperial librarian was fired because Her Majesty cut herself on a book page. One of the maids raises her hand and asserts that, by the way, this very librarian. From what she knows, the poor guy had all his fingers chopped off, and if that's true, it's truly horrific. The red-haired lady insists that this cannot be true, But the other maid remarks that after all she has heard, it may well be true. She thinks she heard something similar too, as if that gardener's nose was cut off as punishment for those very flowers. There are also rumors that Her Majesty collects severed body parts from her servants, and if she takes a liking to a servant's hair, she rips it out by the roots and dumps it all on the poles. They say that she keeps the heads of these unfortunates in the storeroom. And did not those who became personal servants of Her Majesty disappear without a trace after a month or two? So one of the ladies asks if Her Majesty's hair is actually fake. The main character thinks what a nightmare this is, and realizes she can't bear to listen to this ridiculous talk any longer. So Paresa says she'll probably go. One of the maids wonders if she's really leaving, and adds that Paresa doesn't seem to be afraid at all. The main character thinks that people are always hungry for gossip, and is sure that wherever she goes, she will still be considered strange. The Empress's wife really can be so cruel. The next day, they begin selecting the girls who will serve in the Emperor's palace. The red-haired lady joins them and happily expresses her happiness. Then it's Sarah's turn, and someone announces that she's heading to the Empress's palace. The girl is horrified and begins to hiccup from fear, but the man sternly orders everyone to remain silent. After all, now that the distribution is complete, a maid will be chosen who will become Her Majesty's personal maid. He had been watching them all closely for the past week for this moment, and so this servant becomes Lady Paresa Menzel, which genuinely surprises the girl. The man adds that starting tomorrow she will begin her duties as Her Majesty's personal maid, and the main character can't help but wonder why she was chosen. After a while, the purple-haired lady lets out a sharp cry, declaring that she would never, under any circumstances, agree to such a thing. The girl is also genuinely perplexed as to how she managed to attract the attention of such a high-ranking person. After this, she resolutely heads for the door and irritably thinks about how they expect her to work for such an empress, considering everything that is happening to be absurd, after which she declares that she is leaving immediately. The girl slams the door hard, and the maids stand there, staring at the main character. After a moment, one of them cautiously asks what to do with Paresa now, as she appears to be in complete shock. Another lady asks worriedly if everything is all right with the young girl, while the heroine herself is immersed in memories. She recalls the man calmly telling her to just try to hold out for 3 months. The young woman was perplexed as to what he was talking about, as she enjoyed her job. However, the man confidently asserted that the girl was well aware of the unpleasant and far from flattering rumors that had long been circulating among the low-class servants. Despite this, he insisted that she soberly assess the opportunities that would open up before her, because such a chance was truly unique for her. The girl then replied that she wasn't going to promise anything, as she didn't like unnecessary attention and was perfectly content as a simple servant. The man then asked her if she realized how many people dreamed of being a personal servant. To this she admitted that she had not given it much thought, and the man explained that as soon as Her Majesty took her under her protection, the entire family would be protected. But the girl reminded him that she had left home a long time ago. The man then added that the pay would be several times higher than what she currently receives in her position. Seeing the young lady's reaction, he thought he had finally hit the nail on the head, and confidently continued his arguments. The girl admitted that she didn't know what a personal servant's salary was, to which she merely shrugged, after which the man rose from his seat. He showed the lady the contract and pointed to the line where the amount of her future salary was indicated. He also added that if the lady starts her duties tomorrow, she will be able to earn even more. Paresa was shocked and mentally calculated how many years she would have to work to earn that kind of money. At that moment, the main character thought that she had been stupid in trying to avoid dealing with her superiors and such offers earlier. Soon she even smiled, imagining the money she could get, while one of the maids watched Paresa with anxiety and did not understand what she should do now. However, the heroine reasoned that such a high payment clearly had a reason, and perhaps the Empress really did have a difficult character, but she was confident that she could endure at least these miserable 3 months. Sometime later, the lady was already heading toward the Empress, while the maids around her were whispering about the new arrival. One of them wondered in surprise where the one who had come last time was, and whether it was really all over for him. Another lady reminded her that she apparently hadn't heard and felt sorry for the girl, since the butler brought in new people almost every day. The main character was starting to get nervous and wondered if she would be okay, but compared to what she had done before, being a personal maid didn't seem so bad. The butler, meanwhile, was thinking about Perez and was sure that this particular girl would be much more suitable for Her Majesty than many noblemen. So he just hoped that luck would be on their side this time, and then turned to Her Majesty. He announced that a new servant had arrived, and the main character immediately introduced herself and respectfully greeted Her Majesty. After this, the lady with pink hair asked with interest whether it was really her personal maid standing in front of her. Her Majesty laughed and told the girl to raise her head, and when she obeyed, she saw a beautiful lady who declared that from now on the girl would have to obey all her orders without question. The moment their gazes met, the world seemed to freeze, and the main character thought that she was only imagining it. Until this moment, she seemed to live only for today, so she immediately dropped to one knee. She expressed her readiness to do everything in her power for Her Majesty, and Pereza caught herself thinking that she almost added words about her readiness to give her life without hesitation. Then the lady felt everyone's eyes on her and wondered if she'd overdone it. The pink-haired lady wondered if the other servants had taught her this behavior. And wasn't she told to fall on her knees immediately upon meeting, while the butler asked Pereza to rise. He pointed out that it was not worth going that far, and the main character quickly apologized, realizing that she had done it out of habit, without thinking for a second. The woman noticed that the lady had the right attitude and a strong desire to succeed, and therefore considered this even commendable. Her Majesty inquired how the girl imagined how she would be used. She replied that she was ready for anything, and at that moment the main character herself did not understand what was happening and why she felt a strange obsession. The lady with pink hair suddenly suggested that the girl should then jump out of the window. The main character didn't understand what was being discussed, and Her Majesty reminded her that she had just claimed to be ready for anything. If so, then let him jump. And Pereza thought with horror that the woman was really speaking seriously. Her Majesty coldly asked if the lady was really incapable, and the heroine finally realized that this was not a joke. The girl realized that she could get seriously injured from such a height. Her Majesty remarked that the words sounded beautiful, but as she expected, everyone around her was quick to throw around empty promises. She decided that the girl was probably barely holding back her tears and dreaming of leaving this place as soon as possible. However, the main character slowly approached the window, after which she decisively climbed onto it, and she fell down, flying out into the street, leaving Her Majesty and the butler in complete shock. The man wondered, confused, what to do now. But Her Majesty screamed, indignant at how he had managed to miss out on such a candidate when all the girl had to do was kneel and beg for mercy. She added that a personal servant should understand her master without words, and declared that she did not want to watch this, ordering that the girl be taken to the doctor immediately. The butler turned to one of the maids, reminding her that she had heard everything, and ordered her to take care of it, to which she agreed, and he himself thought that it would be extremely impolite on his part to look for a new maid now. At that moment, one of the maids screamed, and Her Majesty immediately asked what had happened. Afterwards, she notices the main character in the window. The man is surprised to note the girl's incredible luck in clinging to the tree, considering it almost a miracle. She jumped from a great height and landed softly on the ground, as if it was nothing. Thus, she earned a great deal of respect. At this point, the main character gently shakes out her dress and greets Her Majesty again. At this, she states her name, Pereza Menzel. Silence reigns in the room, all eyes turn to Her Majesty. The woman just laughs and notices, with surprise, that she finds Perez, name unusually pleasant. So oddly enough, she decides to let the girl serve and see how long she can remain so brave. Pereza can hardly believe that she has succeeded, and soon one of the maids reports that all preparations are complete and asks her to go in the indicated direction. She receives help with her clothes from another person for the first time and remembers Her Majesty's words about getting rid of old rags, because a personal maid cannot wear torn clothes. The girl realizes she's spent all her money on clothes. As she approaches the door, the butler addresses her. He says that Lady Pereza did an excellent job, but he should have been warned beforehand, because he almost lost his head. The butler admits that never before has a first meeting gone so smoothly, and asks the girl to continue in the same spirit. Pereza understands that at their first meeting, Her Majesty ordered her to jump out the window, so there is no need to worry too much about the future. The tasks will become more difficult each time. A little later, the pink-haired lady remarks that the personal servants must be attentive, and informs her that she will have to leave the palace tomorrow, so Paresa's task is to find a suitable outfit for her. The main character is glad that the first task is not too difficult. She just needs to choose a dress. However, the woman soon cries out for the next dress, claiming that she has no taste at all. What are the eyes for then, if a lady can't even choose a dress? Paresa reflects that this is just another attempt, and that she can only obey, since they are all almost the same. At this point, one of the maids recommends a blue dress. The main character chooses one. She decides to try it, but when she shows the dress to Her Majesty, she demands the next one. Paresa realizes she needs another blue dress and finds another option. The lady with the pink hair again demands the next one, and soon Her Majesty shouts that the butler has already grown old while they were choosing. She can't believe she was given a maid who can't even choose one dress, and asks if this is normal at all. The main character replies that Her Majesty will look dazzling in any case, but the woman sternly orders her to remain silent. She then turns to another maid and asks for a knife. The maid is alarmed and asks if it's really necessary. The woman shouts again for something spicy, anything. Paresa wonders if the atmosphere here is really strange, and if it's all because she couldn't choose the right dress. Rumor has it that Her Majesty likes the hair of her maids, which she uses to make wigs. The heads of the unfortunate maids are kept in the storeroom. Paresa feels a headache and thinks she should run before it gets worse. At this time, the maid brings a knife, and the woman orders to cut. The maid asks if this is too radical, as the dress will be ruined, but receives the answer that the outfits are terrible and need to be cut up. The maid asks how to do this in front of His Majesty, and the woman snatches the knife from her hands. She screams that it is very simple and starts cutting up dresses. Pieces fly in all directions until all the dresses except one are completely cut to pieces. The lady with pink hair turns to Paresa and gives her one last chance. She shows the dress she liked and asks to choose the matching shoes. Paresa hopes that she will cope with this task and thinks how wonderful this woman is. Her Majesty warns her that she mustn't make a mistake in her choice, otherwise she could lose an eye. The girl realizes that at that moment, her thoughts are focused on only one thing. Paresa decides to clarify why the lady doesn't choose the shoes herself. The woman is interested in what was said, and the heroine explains that even if she chooses herself, precious time will be wasted. The girl realizes that the wrong choice shouldn't tarnish the Empress's beauty, as she is a devoted servant. The woman asks if this constitutes resistance. Paresa apologizes, but says she can't carry out the order, at which point the woman cries out, wondering if she really wants to fall into eternal sleep. Finally, she orders another maid to bring the new shoes that were delivered yesterday. Paresa understands that her place is always on Her Majesty's side, after which the woman says that tomorrow the girl is free, because she is too stupid to realize her position. A little later, another maid puts the shoes on the mistress and asks about her impressions. The woman remarked that they were a very good choice and had foreseen that this would be the best option. However, the main character turns to Her Majesty and explains that it is simply impossible for her to walk in these shoes. The Empress gets angry and asks what she's talking about, and Paresa replies that the shoes are too unstable, the center of gravity is off, and in such a pair it's easy to lose balance and fall. Therefore, it is better to choose another pair, but the woman mockingly asks if she does not want to bring eternal sleep upon herself. The pink-haired lady cries out that if it were her wish, she would personally fulfill it, but when Her Majesty comes closer, she suddenly trips over her shoes and loses her balance. Another maid screams, warning of a fall, but the Empress is already falling to the floor. The main character immediately picks it up, wondering if her chance has finally come. She recalls that she warned about how unstable the shoes were. The pink-haired lady becomes furious and screams for the butler to remove the girl from there immediately. After some time, Paresa returns to her room, thinking what a hard day she had today. As she enters, she hears greetings from the other maids and their questions about whether everything is all right with the lady. One of them asks Paresa, for God's sake, to say that it was not she who jumped out of the window, because rumors say that her body was stuck in a tree, and everyone was terribly worried, thinking about broken arms and legs. The main character is surprised by how quickly the rumors spread and reassures them that she's perfectly fine and it's all just a lie. Another lady asks if it's true that the Empress brandished a knife. Paresa confirms this, which surprises the girls, One maid adds that they say that if she fails, the Empress will gouge out her eyes. One of the ladies asks what Paresa should do now, given the dire situation, and wonders if anything terrible has happened to her. The girl thinks everything seems fine, but they're right. At the moment when the Empress pointed the knife at her, she felt no intention of harm. It was something different, as if she was looking at an angry cat and not a person. One of the maids asks if everything is okay with Paresa, the other adds that she is too shocked, because she is not with them. After some time, someone notices that there is nothing to worry about now, because the girl is leaving. Paresa understands that she's been formally fired. One maid thinks it's the right decision, while the other agrees, as her safety is paramount. But then there is a knock on the door, and the maid asks who has come at such an hour. One lady opens the door and asks who is there, after which the butler enters the room. He turns to Paresa and asks her to pack her things immediately. The girl, perplexed, asks what he's talking about. The butler explains that the lady is moving and must go to the Empress's palace. This is Her Majesty's order, and in the future, Paresa will become her closest assistant. The next day, the maids whisper whether this is the same maid from yesterday who seemed to have already been fired. The other one agrees that she thought the same thing, and Paresa realizes how strange it is. After all, just yesterday the Empress was shouting for the butler to remove her immediately, and the girl is wondering what is going on in the head of the Empress. Meanwhile, the pink-haired lady approaches Paresa, asking what she is doing. The main character bows and asks how the Empress slept last night. She just remains silent, and Paresa thinks that something is wrong, but at the same time the Empress looks quite collected after yesterday's events. The woman explains that now she will tell about the duties, because Paresa manages the tea room. Every morning after breakfast, she has to bring a cup of tea, and this is part of her duties. Paresa replies that she will do her best, wondering if the Empress will remember yesterday, but she is not in a bad mood. The woman then orders that tea be brought to her immediately, and the girl agrees. With a smile on his face, Paresa makes tea, realizing that this is much easier than choosing outfits. Today she will correct yesterday's mistake and sees tea as her small achievement. The tea was impeccable, as if created especially for Her Majesty. One of the maids approached Paresa to discuss its special features. She talked about the tea, after which the main character wondered if the maid was trying to tell her that the drink was truly delicious. However, the lady noted that she believed Paresa would have a difficult time when this tea reached Her Majesty's table. The girl was shocked and asked in surprise why, since the drink's color was so beautiful and would suit the Empress perfectly. The maid explained that the task was extremely difficult. It is necessary to take into account what floral scent Her Majesty prefers lately. It's also important to understand the Empress's current mood and what color she particularly likes at the moment. It's important to consider all the nuances and prepare thoroughly. The main character sighed, noting that even managing a cup of tea was no easy task. She also suggested that perhaps it would make sense to choose tea leaves that could have a beneficial effect on the body and mind, since after yesterday's events, the Empress had been having a hard time. She was screaming and tearing her dresses. After some time, the girl was already holding a cup of tea in her hands and trying it. The main character watched the Empress's reaction with excitement, and she, smiling, admitted that she liked the tea and that it gave her peace of mind. The young lady was as amazed as the other servants, but the woman added that even if Paresa didn't always have a keen sense of atmosphere, she clearly had her strengths. After this, the Empress approached Paresa and announced that in the future she intended to entrust her with many other duties. Then she asked the girl if she would be willing to follow her everywhere. The protagonist replied that, of course, she would be delighted. The Empress noted that Pare's name sounded promising and they could move on to the next case. Paresa replied that she would do everything to please her mistress. A little later, she walked through the garden and realized that the rumors of the Empress's strict demands were greatly exaggerated. Or perhaps she had an innate talent for her work. The girl could not believe that such a picky Empress liked her choice. Paresa thought it was true, and Her Majesty couldn't help but notice. Such maids are hard to find. After some time, the butler turned to the Empress with respect, asking what she was thinking about. After all, anyone would have said that the lady was behaving unusually, suddenly deciding to bring a new servant into the palace. The woman explained that she had changed her mind and that the girl had told her about the shoes out of concern. This brave girl made a remark, knowing full well that it could cost her life. The Empress couldn't let such a servant slip by. At that moment, the main character was heading to the stables. She said she had come on Her Majesty's orders. One of the men asked if that was really true. Parisa confirmed and added that she had come to prepare the horses for tomorrow's riding. The man nodded, confirming the information was correct, and invited the lady inside. She was curious to see which horses were destined for the Empress. However, upon entering, she was a little surprised. The Empress said it would be a mistake to say goodbye to this girl right away. The main character examined many horses, and the man next to her explained that they all belonged to Her Majesty. He asked which one the girl needed. Parisa remembered that the Empress had asked him to take care of her favorite horses. This particular task was special, and only Parisa could be entrusted with it. The woman asked if she could handle it, as no horse should be left without attention. The man explained that the Empress had not been there for several years. Parisa was in shock. After a while, she was already grooming the horses. She recalled asking the man about the Empress's favorite horse, but he said it seemed she was no longer interested. Much time had passed since his last meeting with the Empress. He still asked why the girl had suddenly decided to look after horses. Parisa smiled, looking at the happy horse, and thought that it was great that at least someone there was happy. One of the men asked if the lady had done this before, as the horses clearly loved her. Incidentally, they'd already handled 10, and there were only a few more to go. Parisa thought the girl hadn't even ridden these horses, so why bother? But she decided to continue, because she needed her salary as a personal servant. After a while, the girl released the horse and went looking for the next one. She soon saw it. She noted that the horse was beautiful, with excellent muscle balance and a shiny, silky mane. This was enough to make him the Empress's favorite horse. The main character had already imagined this, thinking that such attachments could be dangerous for the heart, and that perhaps she should be given a few riding lessons. But it was hard for her to even imagine that the woman would do this out of spite. Parisa thought she might have gone a little crazy. At that moment, a man approached her and said it was best not to touch that horse. The main character is perplexed by the delay in her interlocutor's response, and he only explains that he completely forgot to mention an important detail. The girl then wonders if this is Her Majesty's horse, but the groom asks her simply not to touch the animal. He explains that the horse has an extremely difficult temperament, and if it is touched, frightened, or even slightly injured, it can become seriously angry. One mistake can cause injury, and it is at this moment that the horse knocks over the bucket of water and then suddenly rushes at the main character. Her Majesty is in her room at this time, drawing, and when she has finished her work, she draws a wide line of red paint over the image. The woman notices that today seems especially boring to her, and wonders if she has anything planned for the afternoon. The servant answers Her Majesty in the negative, after which the woman changes her clothes, continuing to think about how monotonous everything around her seems to her. If you think about it, right now she remembers her personal maid and the moments that were associated with her, and also how she asked the girl if she was ready to follow her everywhere, and how in response she heard a confident agreement. Now the woman only smiles slightly, after which all her attention switches to the butler, whom she orders to immediately prepare the carriage. At this time, the groom sighs heavily and notices that no matter how much he thinks about it, what is happening still seems surprising to him. Just recently, he wondered how the lady managed to get out of the situation without a scratch. The girl then explained that the horse was fine, and that the difficulties were only related to its fiery nature, noting that the horse reminded her of someone, and the man was only surprised after that, not understanding whether this was something new for her. Parisa explains that he feels he needs to relax a little to finally calm down, so he suggests going for a walk. The man agrees, although he cannot understand how even he, who has worked here for many years, still finds this horse so difficult. He wonders whether the requirements for selecting servants have changed in recent years. Soon the man turns his gaze to the road and realizes that Her Majesty has arrived at the stables. The Empress notes that, judging by their appearance, working in the stables is not easy for them. The man explains that the consequences of today's small incident are to blame for everything. He quickly adds that everything is usually clean here, and the lady will not have to see the stable in such a state anymore, as he will definitely fix everything. The woman then says that this is enough, and asks if Parisa is doing her job. The man is surprised at the sudden change of topic, but still answers in the affirmative, noting that the girl is under the noble command of Her Majesty, is very capable. and that the horses immediately accepted her. The woman asks if the girl is really that capable, and the servant confirms this, adding that it was thanks to Pereza that the work that they had been unable to complete for a long time was completed, including the most difficult and stubborn horse. However, the lady with pink hair tells him to be quiet and makes it clear that she does not wish to discuss it further, as if she doubts whether the groom means to say that the girl is too good. She notes that she will have to decide this herself, and therefore intends to sort it out personally, after which she asks where Pereza is now. After this, Her Majesty sets off in a carriage and on the way asks the butler for his opinion. She also wonders if he feels that someone has dared to treat her orders with disdain. The man replies that he doubts it, but the Empress immediately and sharply demands that he look forward, while the butler, not having binoculars, admits that he sees nothing. The woman claims that the girl, instead of fulfilling her duties, is simply fooling around with the horse. Moreover, she is outraged that she dared to tame her horse and chose the most beautiful one. The Empress comes to the conclusion that the lady used her order only as a pretext to fulfill her own whim. Remembering all this, she understands that it was not in vain that she was interested from the very beginning in why the girl behaved so boldly and did not think at all about the consequences. The woman is convinced that she was right in suspecting an attempt to gain personal gain while being subordinate to her. At this time, one of the horses catches a pleasant smell, and the Empress again draws the butler's attention to what is happening. She orders him to keep a close eye on Pereza, believing that this impudent woman could not even imagine that she would be caught red-handed. Now they are going to watch what the girl will do next, while the butler is only perplexed as to why this worries Her Majesty so much. The woman is in complete shock when she sees the girl climbing onto the horse. After this, she completely loses her temper, not understanding why Pereza is acting as if the horse belongs to her. The Empress decides that this is unacceptable and demands that the horse be returned immediately, since it belongs to her. Suddenly, the woman is even more surprised when she notices another horse nearby, which is almost reaching out to her and seems to be trying to lick her. In her irritation, she immediately slams the carriage door on the horse's forehead and is indignant at the fact that even animals seem to be trying to irritate her. The butler suggests that the horse might have liked the smell of the lady's hair, but the woman is sure that Pereza is to blame. At this moment, the horse kicks the carriage wheel, causing it to slide off the road, while the main character heads back with the pink horse. The girl thinks that everything is going well, because now the horse is more willing to be ridden, and very soon Her Majesty will be able to ride it too. However, suddenly she hears strange sounds and, turning around, notices horses carrying a carriage. The main character also sees Her Majesty inside and does not understand what exactly is happening. The carriage rushes past, and the Empress, in despair, demands that the maid save her. She hurries everyone around and turns to the coachman, not understanding why he cannot stop the carriage. The man explains that this is impossible because the horses were pushed too hard, and at that very moment, Her Majesty hears someone speaking to her. This voice convinces her not to worry, and Pereza makes it clear that he is going to help Her Majesty. The main character extends her hand, indicating that the lady needs to grab it and decide to jump. The lady with pink hair cannot believe what is happening and considers it madness. However, the main character assures that everything will be fine and asks Her Majesty to trust her. At this time, the butler turns to the Empress, begging her not to confirm that she is really going to jump. And this is very dangerous, but at that very moment the woman grabs the maid's hand. Then he jumps out of the carriage. The main character grabs the girl and places her next to her on the horse, after which he asks the Empress if she's okay. The woman becomes indignant and wonders why this girl is so tough, and the butler continues to head toward the moving carriage. A little while later, the main character asks if it turns out she no longer has to work in the stables. The Empress replies that she's already been told the girl handled the task well. She also claims her clothes are all dirty and she won't go near the horses again. But then the woman sees someone else, after which she keeps asking him what he is doing there. The guy replies to Her Highness that the Crown Prince has come to visit her, but she wonders what he forgot there and why he always comes without warning. The main character understands that if you think about it, he was often gossiped about in the dorm and the girls constantly discussed him. So she's curious about what kind of person he is. But when the young lady finally sees the prince, then she thinks where this bright light comes from. after which she looks at the prince's face. At this time, the guy turns to his mother and asks how she has been living all this time. Meanwhile, Paresa is wondering why the prince is so handsome. The guy apologizes for showing up uninvited, and the maids, watching from afar, can barely stand. The Empress insists that if the boy was truly ashamed, he shouldn't have come. A little while later, they are already sitting in the room, and the main character, looking at the prince, understands that she doesn't believe that he's real. And the crown prince looks very much like the Empress. So the girl wonders if this glow is hereditary. The Empress is in her dressing room at this time. The main character thinks that Her Majesty wasn't very happy to see the prince, and that they might be at odds. After all, the crown prince is the Empress's stepson, and, as her heir, died 16 years ago. He is the half-brother of the young twins born to the current Empress. The girl also wonders if their disagreement is due to the prince holding the title of heir. However, in this situation, His Highness is too kind to the Empress, since he quite legally received power, which is passed down through the imperial family by inheritance. At this time, the prince turns to the maid and tells her to make him more tea. The main character then apologizes and says that she was distracted by accident but will do everything right now. After which, she also thinks about how long she was staring at him. The girl also realizes that she continues to lose her mind. She also wonders why the Empress has taken so long to return. At this time, His Highness enters the room and asks if the girl is helping his mother, and also if it is worth it. After all, she has a rather difficult personality, and he's had the opportunity to observe her working under her, so he's a bit unsure that she's a simple servant. The main character replies that she's afraid he's mistaken, because she's just an ordinary servant. The young lady also asks him if he liked the tea, to which he replies that it was rather mediocre. He also understands that the girl's hands are by no means beautiful or pampered, nor are they the hands of a maid accustomed to housework. After all, these are the hands of a person trained to hold a sword. After which the guy asks what the girl's name is, to which she replies that her name is Paresa, and the guy, with a smile on his face, replies that it's interesting because someone like her is her mother's personal servant. The main character is surprised by this and wonders if this guy really knows something about her. After which she asks His Highness what he's doing. But at that very moment, the door to the room opens, and the Empress comes in there, after which she looks at the main character and also asks the prince, what is he doing with her maid? The boy replies that they've been waiting for Her Majesty for too long, and the women ask why he didn't return to his own place. After which she sits down at the table and asks what kind of business it was that the Somali guy personally dragged himself there for. The prince replies that his father had made him an offer the day before, after which he wonders if Her Majesty would be so kind as to accompany him to a couple of upcoming balls as a companion. After all, she hasn't attended social events for a long time, and this is a great opportunity to renew her activity in public life, and therefore let the lady understand that even if she lives in solitude, nothing will change. The Empress's face just turns pale, and she cries out, wondering what the guy even understands. But he replies that he is not delighted either, but Her Majesty did not contribute to the search for a suitable bride for him. And isn't it beneficial for both of them? Because all he has to do is announce that the lady came to the ball with him, and he won't have to dance with any girl. The main character watches all this and understands that the guy did not come to ask, but to convey an order. After which, he rises from his seat and claims he has plenty to do. But, by the way, Her Majesty's maid makes quite good tea. Well, then he says with a smile on his face that he thinks someone else could do it better. The main character thinks, what is the point of bothering her? And the prince claims that he will drop by to see the lady next week, so let her be kind. And they're getting ready to go to Marquis Velbert's ball. The Empress is angry after that, and then she screams at the top of her lungs that this beetle is only good at talking. The main character wonders if she's talking about a beetle, but this description doesn't at all match the prince's appearance. At this point, the Empress cries out, does this guy really think that she will pretend to be a bridesmaid? And the young lady thinks that it seems that now she understands where this hostility comes from. Her Majesty claims that she does not want to go to the ball and simply cannot appear there with this useless idiot. Well, then the woman comes up with something and claims that Paresa simply couldn't have had a debut. And here is her chance to go out, the girl will go with her, and it is precisely at such moments that a personal maid is needed. The empire has a culture of life and high society. To the casual observer, it seems that the nobles merely indulge in pleasures and wallow in luxury, that any of their dreams can come true with a single thought. However, society there is built on complex interactions. Ladies know cultural trends and fashion is shaped by them, strengthening influence through the formation of alliances between aristocratic families. With due luck, there is a chance to seize the place of the bride of the heir to the throne. It was during Her Majesty the Empress's debut in high society that the emperor noticed her. Makeup and fashionable outfits are now considered equal to military uniforms, and this place is full of riches of struggle for power, love intrigues, and hidden competition. At this time, one of the maids turns to Her Majesty and asserts that everything is ready. But when the woman looks at the result, she is surprised, and the main character thinks that this is also a kind of struggle. Therefore, she, assisting Her Majesty, announces that she is entering a new battle. The girl also addresses Her Majesty, and he says that she is in the most fighting spirit. But the woman only screams, "What kind of horror is this?" and let them wash it off immediately. The maid immediately takes the main character away and says they're to blame. The lady with pink hair claims that this is unthinkable, because even entering this room in such a state is unforgivable. The main character asks if it's really that bad. Then the woman says it's downright strange, since the girl has a nice face shape and proportions, but nothing suits her, and perhaps it's because it's her makeup. Meanwhile, the main character thinks it's not easy to be strong in this world. A little while later, the Empress is already choosing a dress for the main character. They go through a lot of outfits, and one of the maids speaks to Her Majesty that this is the last of what remains. But when Paresa tries on this outfit, the Empress says that nothing suits her at all. The main character then asks Her Majesty why she is dressing up and not the Empress. Well, the woman wonders if she hasn't already said that she decided to help the girl with her debut. Debuting in Swedish society is a unique opportunity, so while the girl will be grateful, the main character wonders why she should do this. She also asks what is so remarkable about aristocratic society, and the woman in turn asks if the girl is making fun of her. High aristocratic society differs from provincial society in that the circle of people invited to social events includes not only nobles, but also the imperial family. Therefore, if a girl catches the eye in any way, it won't be difficult to find someone willing to sponsor her. There is also a chance to meet distinguished guests from other countries, so if the girl's debut goes perfectly, her name could become famous even in a foreign country. The young lady is already imagining someone bursting into the ball, after which she will scream that she has been searched everywhere and she has been rolling around there all this time. So how dare she do that? The girl would then scream for the lady to let her say something, but the woman will scream that she needs these excuses because she is a traitor. So now the main character asks Her Majesty when the ball will take place. The Empress wonders if the girl hasn't heard, because it will take place next week. And the young lady thinks, oh no, that's not it. A little while later, the Empress smiles and says that everything is just as she knew it would be. After all, she was saving this dress for a book party, but it's the most suitable style for Paresa, and even the makeup softens her features very successfully. The main character looks at herself and thinks, is everything really not so bad? But then she also realizes that it is not the time to go crazy and tells Her Highness that she will not be debuting, and she simply can't. After which the girl almost falls, one of the maids tells her to be more careful. At this point, one of the prince's servants asks him what he thinks of the outfit. The young man replies that he likes everything, and it almost turned out a little too beautiful. He'd expected to be irresistible, but not to this degree. The servant then asks if something is wrong, and the prince replies that no, he's worked hard. After all, everything is perfect as always, and he's pleased, and now he's completely ready. The guy also thinks that nothing can be done because he is simply dazzling no matter how you look at him. At this point, the knight enters the room and addresses His Highness, stating that he has come regarding his orders. The young man has come to report on the interim results of the investigation. The story centers on Paresa Menzel. She's 24 years old, and her resume indicates that she used to fencing as a hobby, so she's physically strong and healthy. She doesn't tire easily and is capable of handling any task. At this time, the guy is wondering if fencing was really her hobby. He wonders if she would have had calluses on her hands if it were just a hobby. The knight says at this point that, unfortunately, they couldn't find out anything else, as their investigation had reached a dead end. He had been trying to find information about activity over the past 10 years, but no traces were found on their country's territory. The prince then asked what he was talking about. The young man claims to have also established the Menzel family's genealogy. The former head of the family is now deceased, and nothing more is known. The prince realizes that it cannot be ruled out that the girl is only pretending to be an aristocrat, after which he claims that he is now worried. And is it a coincidence that this suspicious lady ended up as mother's personal servant with some kind of dossier? The knight wonders what the prince will order next, to which he replies that so far there is nothing and he needs to know more in order to do something, so he'll figure it out himself. Meanwhile, the Empress asks the main character if she's never taken dancing lessons. A little while ago, she claimed how she would dare to accompany Her Majesty to the ball as a mere servant, without even the slightest dancing skills, and everyone would laugh at her. The girl also asked if the lady still wanted her to make her debut in high society, and understood that dancing was the only thing she could think of. But a little while later, the teacher claps her hands and says that the girl is really doing very well. It's also the first time she's seen someone control their movement so well. The Empress says that she knew it, and the young lady doesn't even need to study, after which the main character tells Her Majesty that this is some kind of misunderstanding. But the teacher says that Her Majesty's maid has an unrivaled sense of balance and is simply a genius. The young lady thinks that, of course, since she has been developing her body since childhood, but the girl still thinks that soon she will go crazy. The teacher claims that everything is perfect and the lady has no flaws, after which the Empress confirms. The ball is tomorrow, so we need to go to bed early tonight. The main character then heads back to her room and wonders if she will have to quit. And are there any other options? Well then, one of the maids turns to Lady Pereza, and she says that after they were assigned there, so many things fell on her head, it happened that she couldn't really introduce herself. After all, her name is Marie Doncon. The main character replies that she's very pleased to meet you. And her interlocutor claims that the personal maid has never stayed in this position for so long and she can speak informally. Pereza replies that, of course, and the girl can address her however she feels comfortable. The main character also thinks the lady looks kind and thinks they're the same age. Marie claims that, frankly speaking, this is the first time Her Majesty has held the position of maid of honor for so long, and she even takes care of Paratius. But the girl replies that their first meeting, however, did not go so smoothly. The young lady also thinks about something, after which she turns to her interlocutor, and she wonders how many people have been punished in this way and fired, after which the girl claims that the maid, who had been there for a long time, often talked about this, and in fact, none of them have been fired yet. Marie also says she'll be back soon to give the ladies a facial. The main character then thanks her and wonders if the girl is already leaving. It's a pity that she hadn't done this before. But, by the way, for some reason she is in a wonderful mood now and the girl is wondering why. A little while ago, when the main character was little, she asked Rebella if everything was okay. The girl then turned to Pereza and claimed that she would definitely become stronger and would be stronger than everyone else. And she will also take revenge on everyone who laughed at her and called her weak. The girl also told Pereza to go with her. After all, together they will become stronger, and the girl will always be by her side, to which the main character agreed. And she claimed that wherever her sister went, she would go with her. Now the main character wakes up on the floor and realizes that it was just a dream. A short time later, the Empress turns to the butler and asks what he has to say. The man replies that it appears the lady is indeed making her debut. To which the woman replies, yes, and this is a real debut in high society. The main character claims she feels like she's disguising herself. And by the way, she didn't pay attention to the movie example. That dress is so unusual. The Empress asks how the girl even holds the fan, and she treats it like some kind of weapon. The lady with pink hair claims that the weather should be light and graceful as a feather. Then the butler approaches Her Majesty and states that the crown prince has arrived. The guy claims that he came to accompany his mother and extends his hand to her. The main character, looking at this guy, thinks that it is like a blinding blow to the heart. And she also wonders if he is even real, because every time she sees him, her self-esteem suffers irreparably. At this time, the prince turns his attention to the main character and is surprised, and he wonders if this is the same servant. The Empress replies that yes, and this is her brilliant creation. After which, the guy says that his mother is especially beautiful today. And the woman asks if he means to say that she is beautiful only today. The main character thinks that this is quite expected, because he ruined the whole mood and is looking at her strangely again. Afterwards, they board the carriage and head to the ball. The Empress turns to her maid and asks how she managed to ruin her hair so quickly, considering she had just told her a girl should be as light as a feather. The main character wonders why she is so happy and whether they are really going to the ball. The Empress claims that today the girl is her creation, and she must show her off to everyone. And the prince claims that the lady has a wonderful relationship with her maid, and the woman replies that she has to help her with everything. After which the prince says that, however, this is the first time he has heard of Lady Menzel's surname. The girl replies that she comes from the provinces, so there is nothing surprising about this, and the guy asks if that's true. Paresa realizes she's gotten away with it after all. The Empress turns to the prince and asserts that she heard him say something very disappointing. Therefore, he must not dare neglect provincial families. The woman also addresses the young woman and tells her to forget what the guy said. She also asks if her family is poor and if they have enough money. After all, when they first met, the girl didn't even have a decent dress. The main character replies that no one thinks whether Her Majesty has always been so kind. At this time, someone announces that they have arrived, and the prince helps his mother out of the carriage. He also asks her to take care of him today, but the woman only smiles. And he claims he didn't understand because she won't be his partner today. The prince is a little surprised by this, and the Empress cries out that today her personal servant is accompanying the prince. The main character is surprised by this, as it's the first time she's heard of it. A short time later, they enter the hall, and the servant reports that Her Majesty the Empress and His Highness the Crown Prince have arrived. The aristocrats see Her Majesty and wonder if His Highness is there too. But then they see another lady next to him and ask who she is, since the Crown Prince so rarely attends balls. So when did he manage to find a partner? A little while ago, the main character was screaming that it was impossible. And why didn't the lady tell her anything? But the woman only asked if Paresa was now resisting her order. After all, even if she can't, she must still obey. Young ladies from all over the world would sell their souls just to hold hands with the Crown Prince, and he will personally bury his girlfriend for the entire evening. Well, the girl then cried out to Her Highness that he must be unhappy that his partner was some kind of servant. But the guy replied that he didn't really care, and also thought that it would be even easier to watch her. The prince also claimed that he thought Pares might be shy and trust his heart. He also asked if she agreed. Now the young lady realizes that his face has blinded her again, and she thinks about it again, so how stupid is this? Because the guy spoke as if they had known each other since they were babies. At this time, someone turns to His Highness and asks how he managed to chew all this time. The guy replies that they haven't seen each other for a long time and asks how the ladies chewed. One of them claims that she is so happy to see him after such a long time, and today the prince finally attended the ball. The guy replies that he is flattered, but first they should say hello. They are with Her Majesty the Empress. One of the ladies then says that Her Majesty was there, after which he greets her and also claims that she was afraid that they might interfere with her usually serene pastime. Well, apparently she jumped to conclusions. After which the lady turns to His Highness once again, and he wonders who that lady is, and that she is seeing her for the first time next to him, and if no one minds, maybe he will introduce her. The man claims that she is Her Majesty's personal servant, and that this is her debut in high society, and that she is also his companion. Paresa also introduces herself and says she's pleased to meet you. One of the ladies asks if the girl is their personal servant, after which she exchanges glances with her friend. The girl also claims that Lady Paresa is so lucky. After all, she is only making her debut, but is already His Highness's companion, and perhaps she should apply to be a maid of honor. Well, then one of the ladies says she's never heard of this surname. The other replies that she, too, doesn't know of any families with that surname among the capital's aristocrats. Paresa replies that she comes from the provinces, so there is nothing surprising about this. And then one of the ladies smiles and apologizes, as they know little about distant places. One of the aristocrats asks how the lady finds life in the capital, and how long it takes to get to her homeland by carriage. And yet for a village girl, she looks quite graceful. The lady also smiles and says she doesn't mean to offend Paresa and means no harm. The main character thinks that she understands perfectly well why the Empress dislikes balls so much. And she did say that the prince should not dare to neglect provincial families, because she foresaw something like this. Now the Empress enters the conversation and asserts that, of course, the lady was worried. And that is precisely why, among all the ladies there, she is the most interesting person, whether she is a capital aristocrat or comes from the provinces. Is this really the only thing they care about? One of the ladies then says it's her fault, because it seems like she has a special relationship with the maid, and Her Majesty is so sensitive to everything that's said to her. The blonde then claims she wasn't serious and asks for forgiveness. And the main character, Todorova, is angry and thinks how dare they speak so arrogantly to the Empress? The Sea of Agis washes 3 states, and the blessing of the god of the sea is the power granted in his name. Blessing, true to its true nature, is something that is given only to the chosen few who possess certain qualities. And it is quite natural that these people have always been objects of admiration due to their abilities. Soon this gift from God became the embodiment of state power, and the prince, observing the young lady, understands that, at least for a little while, well, he is definitely afraid of her, who has a power similar to God's blessing. At this time, another lady tells Her Majesty that she thinks so too, because Lady Paresa looks stunning today. And she truly believes that of all the ladies at the ball, she looks the best. And she kept wondering who had worked so hard on her look. It turned out that Her Majesty personally took care of this, so she wholeheartedly congratulates Lady Paresa on her debut. The lady with pink hair claims that the girl is very perceptive. I ask if this is Countess Boucher. The Countess then asks if the Empress remembers her, to which she replies that, of course, since she was present at her debut. And the lady says that it is an honor for her, but then the other aristocrat apologizes for interrupting their lovely conversation. But it seems they are wasting Her Majesty's time in vain, so perhaps they will go and not disturb her. The prince says that, of course, because the ball will open soon, and he hopes that they will all have fun today. After which they thank His Highness and say that they will then take their leave. The main character understands that they behaved arrogantly towards Her Majesty until the very end. The prince, watching the girl get angry, wondered if she had released this energy herself without realizing it, but now everything is fine. At this time, the main character turns to Her Majesty and asks what they are doing there. Such bad manners must be stopped. However, the woman says that's enough, and let the girl just get ready for the first dance. The main character is surprised by this, and the prince asks if the lady's personal servant is ready for him. The Empress also wondered why the girl was surprised, since the capital's balls were opened by members of the imperial family, and today she was the prince's partner. If she understood everything, then she should hurry up, because music was playing. The main character understands that the moment has come, and that in this duel her opponent will be the crown prince. Well, if she dances and entertains others, then the Empress's mood will improve. After which the young lady goes to the prince and claims that she must warn him in advance. She could trample all over his feet, and it would hurt him a lot. The guy is a little surprised by this, but then he smiles. But Paresa insists she's not joking and only learned to dance last week. She's also heavy. The guy at this point thinks it's funny, then extends his hand to her and claims that he will try to prevent this from happening. After all, he also needs to warn her about something, after which they begin to dance. The guy tells her to watch and not faint. A little while later, someone shouts that being accompanied by a prince is a good start, and he asks Lady Paresa if this is true. But the girl insists that she prefers not to remember it. Marie asks why, since rumors that last night she fulfilled the dream of many ladies are spreading like hotcakes. The main character insists that she won't get another chance like this anyway, and asks if they were all just waiting for the moment to mock her. The girl also wonders how they'll order her to work. Well then, one of the ladies asks if Paresa doesn't know yet, because after the ball, Her Majesty gave them all a day off. At this time, the butler also approaches them and claims that they are entitled to a special bonus for the weekend. The young lady, upon hearing this, immediately extends her hands and states that she is very grateful. The man claims that her love for money is unwavering, but nevertheless, she gave them 2 days of rest so that they would see each other soon. The young lady then thinks that, unlike others, she is Her Majesty's personal servant. And also, will something terrible happen if she's not there? At this point, one of the maids turns to Paresa, and he asks what she plans to do on the weekend, and whether she has already come up with anything. The main character is about to reply that she hasn't come up with an answer yet, but the maid insists that's great, because then she can rely on her. Marie suggests they go shopping on the shopping street. After this, the main character thinks that everything must be fine since she was given an official day off. Marie then says goodbye and says they'll meet later at the palace's back entrance. Paresa agrees but thinks that, after all, she's been through a terribly exhausting adventure and will take advantage of this opportunity to get some rest. A little while later, someone comes into His Highness's room, and the man tells the servant to come in. The knight tells His Highness that, on his orders, he has completed the investigation. The prince claims that she is beautiful, and invites him to report on what is going on with the Manhwa family. And the knight claims that this is an aristocratic family, but in fact they only have a noble title, since this family is in no way connected to the emperor. This is an unremarkable noble family, and is more or less well known outside the capital. Well, some details still seemed suspicious to him, because he still couldn't find out what she had been doing before that. And also, just as this girl became a maid in the imperial palace, it was as if she had never existed before. The guy also hands over documents and claims that he found them in documents from another country and that they describe the details of the immersion into eternal sleep of the deceased head of the Manhwa family. Due to the absence of a legal spouse, he had no official heirs, and subsequently the title of Viscount passed by inheritance to his younger brother. The knight also claims that the investigation into people with magical abilities has unfortunately not borne fruit, and the man says that nothing can be done, because people endowed with special powers are scattered throughout the world, and he allowed it. That finding information about the most powerful ability will be extremely difficult. Unlike Lantius, where the heir to the throne is the most powerful mage, in other countries the blessing of the mandarins is much more widespread. The knight replies that, yes, information can only be obtained in cooperation with other countries. Otherwise, it will not be possible to find out even the approximate extent of their personal information. And it would be unwise to risk it and try to extract information close to a military secret through espionage. Well, at that very moment, someone knocks on the door, and the prince tells that person to come in, after which a guy comes in and asks for forgiveness, and also claims that he is regarding the object of observation, and he has something to report. The man then says that he is very welcome, after which he turns to the knight. He responds, and His Highness tells him to continue to keep an eye on Paresa. A little while later, the main character is already heading to the city in a carriage, after which she and another maid arrive there, and Marie claims that she hasn't walked in the city center for a long time. The main character claims that she has only traveled to palaces so far and that they are too crowded. Well then, another maid grabs the young lady's hand and says that they should go there. When they enter one of the alleys, the main character claims that there is almost no one there. The girl claims that they are servants of the Empress's palace and can afford to relax wherever they want. Well, then the main character looks at one of the display cases and sees a necklace there for 500 nira. She also claims that this street is lined with expensive shops, and that's why it's so empty. But then Marie replies that they work in a palace and must always maintain their dignity. Moreover, the girl is Her Majesty's personal servant, and she generally needs to very carefully monitor her reputation because she does not want to destroy the Empress's authority. The girl then realizes it's true. The Empress's reputation can't be harmed, but she only has 2,000 niras today, and then a quarter will go on a necklace. Marie claims she thinks she knows which store she absolutely must take the girl to. A little while later, they are already there, and the worker claims that they use crystals instead of gemstones, so the prices are lower. The main character looks closely at this dress and realizes that the product is decorated with lace and crystals. It allows the use of lower quality fabrics and sewing, and she has already seen this design, since it is used in mass production. The girl also understands that she has spent a lot of time in the Empress's dressing room, so she is now quite well informed. At this time, the girl asks if this is by any chance Lady Paresa, which makes the main character surprised and wonders if the girl really knows her. The worker replies that, of course, after all, she is His Highness's lady, after which the main character chokes. And he asks what the girl just called her. The worker claims that everyone on this shopping street knows her, after which she also smiles and asserts that since Lady Paresa herself has come to shop, she will offer a special discount. The girl then asks if there's anything else she's seen. Mirai, in time, merely suggests Paresa go look around some more. And when they go further, the girl asks why her colleague didn't choose anything in that store, because she must have liked a different style of clothing. But the main character only claims that it is amazing how quickly rumors spread in this country. The girl also thinks that this is a big problem, because she only appeared in public with the crown prince once, and the news spread all the way to neighboring countries. At this time, someone else turns to Lady Paresa and asks if it is she by any chance. The main character wonders if this is really happening again, and the woman claims that she is grateful to her with all her heart. After all, thanks to her, she has an incredible number of orders, and she talks about the dress that the lady wore to the ball. The main character remembers him and understands what it means that this woman designed that dress. Paresa claims she's pleased to meet him and, thanks to Letty's diligence, her debut was a success. Meanwhile, Marie wonders if this could really be Viscountess Venus. And the woman at this time claims that since they met so fortunately, does the lady want to visit her boutique, because she will pick out an outfit for her again. At this time, Marie tells the girl to agree, because the Viscountess is now the most sought-after couturier. A little while later, the main character is already wearing the Viscountess's dress, and her colleague claims that Paresa is such a beauty. The main character wonders what else to expect from the Empress's own couturier, the embellishments on this dress, and the high-quality fabric. Marie turns to the young lady and asks how she likes the dress. It suits her very well, so the girl asks if she'll buy it. Paresa replies that she really liked the dress too, but she doesn't have the money to buy such a high-quality one. After which the woman claims that she will sell it for 300 nira, which surprises the girls. Paresa realizes that she has just almost spent money on a dress whose quality left much to be desired, but at a much higher price, after which she asks if it is too cheap, to which the woman replies that it is indeed so, because this is the price for materials and sewing. However, in this dress, Lady Paresa will shine brighter than anyone else in social circles, and then her dresses will be on the lips of every lady in the capital. The main character then tells her to wait a second and asks, what does it mean to shine in social circles when she no longer planned to attend balls? However, the woman claims that it doesn't matter, because she should just wear this dress wherever she goes. At this time, he shouts to Marie that she needs to take this dress quickly, because it's very profitable. A little while later, the woman asks if Letty is taking all 3 sets, and the total comes to 1,000 nira. The main character realizes she ended up buying 3 dresses, but at that price, they were practically a steal. The woman, however, claims she's also giving the lady a special 30% discount and asks if she'd like to take advantage of it. A little while later, the two leave the boutique, and Marie claims that the content is finished, so all that remains is to look at the accessories, but if they continue in the same spirit, there will be a hole in her wallet. Paresa claims that they have already spent a lot on the dress, and can they really afford jewelry as well, but the girl replies that this is fine, because she knows an inexpensive place there so it won't be so burdensome. Well, at that very moment, the girl is surprised and screams why the light is turned off. And also, are they really not working today? After which the girl says that she will go and check, and he'll be back soon. The main character thinks it's nice to go shopping sometimes. After all, they can buy jewelry and dresses. But at that very moment, the main character hears a scream. After which she turns to Marie and asks what happened. But the girl only asks what she should do now. The main character immediately runs up to her colleague and asks if she is okay. But the girl, with tears in her eyes, tells Paresa that all the money she earned was stolen. At this time, the man runs into a dead end, after which he turns around and sees the main character there. The girl says that he was caught, after which he asks if this is really the girl from the palace, and it's so arrogant of her to rush after him. after which the man prepares to attack Lethe, and she says that she brought this trouble upon herself. However, at that very moment, the main character kicks the guy in the legs. He falls to the ground. The main character tells him to return the wallet, but the man screams, "Can she be serious?" because he'll soon completely lose his temper. At that very moment, someone asks what this guy is doing, since they entrusted him with only one miserable task. After which, these people look at their colleague and ask what's wrong with his face. And did he really hit on a girl and get punched in the face? Another one claims that this guy is certainly not a handsome man, but that's going too far. After which one of them approaches the young lady and asks if she is too picky. Well, then the other guy says what a fool his colleague is, and also that he is really that stupid, because there is no need to look after someone like that. Well, because you can take everything she has and run away, and, judging by everything, she has a lot of money. But at that very moment, the main character kicks him in the neck, causing him to fly off. The other guys then look at her in shock, and then even get ready to attack. But when the main character turns to them, the bandits realize that they cannot lift a finger. Pereza claims that she can't stand scoundrels like them, because they stole money earned through honest work. After which the young lady tells them to give the money here, and one of the guys hands over a wallet. After which the main character also tells them to live honestly, because if she sees them even once more, she promises that they will not get off so easily. But at that very moment, someone screams for the knights to run there, because the thieves are there. It turns out to be Marie. She also asks, Lali Pereza, and also what happened. And what's with the thieves? The main character then tries to justify herself, claiming they stole Marie's wallet, which is why she ran after them. They fought with each other because they could not divide the loot, after which the knight says that it is clear and asks if the lady is injured. The thieves are taken away, and the knight asks for forgiveness because they should pay more attention to public safety. He also apologizes to Lady Pereza for asking for such a day off, but could she please follow them to the investigation department? The main character of the Atom is shocked, and her colleague asks why. The guy replies that the criminals just arrested had been wanted for a long time. Yes, and Dishit. Besides, they dared to target the maids from the Empress's palace, so they only need their testimony for reporting, and they don't have to worry. The main character says that, since this is the case, nothing can be done, and then hands her wallet to her colleague. She also apologizes for not keeping her promise, but it's already late, so she should return to the dorm quickly. Marie agrees, and the main character tells the girl not to worry, because she will be back soon. A little while later, the knight claims that he has brought her, and the man inside says that the girl should come in. The main character realizes that she has heard this voice somewhere before, and when she goes inside, the prince claims he never would have thought they would meet there. The young lady already wants to scream, wondering what he was doing there. Well, it only says whether His Highness is responsible for the investigative department. The guy replies that's true, and then asks her if she was robbed in the city center. Pereza laughs nervously and claims she was very lucky because the knights arrived at the last minute. The guy smiles after this, and the main character thinks, why is he doing this? After which he says that perhaps then he will ask the last question and asks what the lady knows about Dunamis. The girl wonders why he suddenly asks such a thing, after which he claims that it is an island state, which is located in the northeastern seas, and is interested in whether he asks about it. The guy replies that it's right on target, together with the Lantius Empire and the Oligot Kingdom. Dunamis is one of 3 states that share the power of the sea deity, and he knows a lot of interesting things about this kingdom. For example, that it's there. The second son of the Menzel family immigrated. The main character then begins to sense a force around her and is surprised, after which she finds herself completely wrapped in the power of plants, and the man asserts that in the kingdom of Dunamis, power can awaken not only in members of the royal family. The main character then breaks out of the plants and asks if His Highness really planned to get rid of her. The guy replies that it's not at all the answer, that she has a blessing, and that one way or another she would have managed to get out. But the girl is interested in what would have happened if he had made a mistake and if she had not had the abilities, but the guy claims that this is out of the question. After all, as the heir to the throne, he had interacted with the estuary's flow his entire life, and it is not surprising that he was able to sense the energy that it so carelessly spilled out. After which he says that in that case, he would very much like to hear her excuses. What is the purpose of her stay there and the reason, and also why is she hiding everything, after which the guy advises her to think carefully, because his verdict depends directly on what she says now. The young lady then wonders why he's so picky about her. Well, he claims she's Her Majesty's personal servant, and nothing more, no matter how many times he snoops. However, the man insists she's no ordinary servant, and one day this excellent servant of the Empress appeared, who is a provincial lady with no pedigree and a practically non-existent past, and this is quite enough for the job. However, everything changes if the stranger who entered the palace is a bearer of the aura of the sword, and so, which cannot be allowed. She is currently being held on suspicion of espionage and will be removed from her position as a personal servant after the interrogation. And it would be better for her to voluntarily confess everything, but the girl claims that she would prefer to remain silent. After which, the prince smiles and says that it is good, and also whether she wants to say that she was trained so well. He also asks why she doesn't want to talk, and the girl replies that she simply has nothing to tell him, and she is not a spy, and he is also wasting his time and energy. But the man insists that her words would be better if they were true. The lady then replies that she hasn't lied to him at all, but does His Highness really have reason to suspect Dunamis of espionage? After all, as he himself knows, Dunamis is invulnerable thanks to the magic of swordsmen. Origin doesn't matter if you have talent and drive. Within the kingdom, the Scylla is not a support for power, and responsibility increases proportionally to one's abilities to protect and lead the people. The owner of a divine gift has his own purpose, and if a person has strayed from the righteous path, the blessings are withdrawn. And she, Pereza Menzel, swears by the name of the sea deity that she dares to assert that the blessing is still as strong and insists on her innocence. The guy then says that it's good and he knows a little about the purpose. Well, he wonders what she can tell him about the successor to the royal power, Dunamis. To crown Princess Rebella Dunamis. The girl is surprised, and the boy asks if she has nothing to say to him, even though she's considered the most influential person in Dunamis. The main character then says that, of course she knows, and tells the guy that, since he is also an heir. They are well aware that of the 4 children of the current king, she is the only daughter. Therefore, she is the last in line to the throne, and she is a weak and chronically ill girl. No one could have imagined that in the future she would receive a blessing and eventually take first place in line to the throne. This is the history of the Dunamis royal family today, and no one imagined that the princess would wield such powerful power. Even the current king, who is her father, bowed before the absolute power of the ruler. News of her as the most distinguished successor to the generation spread so quickly that no one had not heard of the princess. And the guy asks her today if she was the right hand of that very famous Rebella. So let her give him at least one reason why he should believe that the girl is not a spy sent by the Knights of Bologna, carrying out the orders of the crown princess of another kingdom. The girl realizes that she didn't expect the conversation to go this far, after which she claims that, since he was so well prepared, he should also know that the princess treats her subordinates as her property. She ran away from there of her own free will. If she had not fled abroad, everything could have ended much worse for her than it did now. At this time, someone hits Marie in the face and screams, "Is it really so difficult to carry out just one order?" The girl claims that she is sincerely sorry, but the countess screams that enough is enough and she does not want to hear her. The woman also claims that this girl is not even capable of finding out information, and since she is a provincial, it should be easier for her to win people over, and all that is required of her is to prepare a place for her in high society. After which the woman asks if this useless piece of trash understands what is needed from her, and since she is no longer capable of anything, let her at least answer the question of what Pereza Menzel is. The girl then replies that she is empty inside, and it seems that this girl is indifferent to everything. Because of the privileges granted to her by the Empress herself as a servant, she follows her everywhere, despite all the dirty rumors. In addition, she is very stubborn, and her devotion to the Empress is sincere, that cannot be taken away. The woman then wonders if there is anything in the world that cannot be taken away, and when she asks the girl if she understood what was required of her, she answers the countess, yes. The woman then claims that she had heard rumors that he was returning. Therefore, let the girl always remember thanks to whom she occupies this place, to which the maid replies that she will remember. At this time, the knight takes the main character to her room, and she claims that this room is huge. The girl asks if she will really be the only one living in such a large room, to which the guy replies that, yes, His Highness has provided her with the best room among those available in the guest rooms nearby. And, yes. Besides, he had something else prepared as an apology. The main character thinks he hardly knows how to apologize at all. The knight claims that he would like to thank the lady on his own behalf, since he was watching her on the orders of His Highness when trouble happened to her friend. He was nearby by chance and could have immediately rushed to help, but he neglected his duties. While he hesitated, the lady rushed after the criminals without hesitation, and as soon as he came to his senses, he immediately called for reinforcements, so the guy thanks the lady for showing nobility. Standing alone against injustice, the young lady thinks he's so sincere and also says he overpraises her. After all, she was just doing what she had to. The guy then wonders if it was really His Highness. However, the main character asks if he is saying that she will receive a monetary reward, and the guy replies that he definitely does. A little while later, the young lady is already wishing Her Majesty good morning, after which she looks at the woman, and he understands that apparently Her Majesty is in a bad mood, and it turns out that the furniture and decor have been rearranged. That's why the main character wonders if something happened in her absence. Well, the Empress immediately screams for the girl to stop standing there like a pillar, and also helps her get ready to go out. After which she also says that it seems that 2 days of vacation had a negative impact on her attitude towards work, because even if the girl continues in the same spirit, she will not see any more vacation pay. The main character thinks that she even feels offended, because if she had the opportunity to relax normally, then everything would be different, and of all the people in the world, she fell in love with the crown prince. When the girl explained that she ran away without permission, who the guy said was understandable. And no matter how you look at it, her story is still complete nonsense and doesn't fit, because she says that she is hiding. But why then did she become a personal servant to a member of the imperial family? The girl replied that, as far as he knew, not long ago she had been a common, low-class servant. And yet he insisted that even a maid in the imperial palace was a prestigious position. After which, the main character talks about money, but very quietly, and the guy asks what she's talking about. The young lady then cries out in embarrassment that she has run out of money and has been cheated in some godforsaken shop. Therefore, she did not have a penny left for travel expenses, and the highest paying job on the exchange turned out to be a maid's job in the palace. The guy then says that it is clear, but the main character understands that he has never heard such terrible words about financial difficulties in his life, after which she says that he could at least pretend to sympathize for the sake of decency. A little while later, she heads after the Empress and thinks that she hasn't caused any problems so far, so she'll just continue in the same spirit. After which, the main character thinks that perhaps now is the time to say Empress, and turns to her. The woman then asks what she is talking about, and the young lady remembers that the prince said that if she does not want to be fired from her position as his mother's personal servant, then she should be kind enough to fulfill one condition. So now the young lady claims that, frankly speaking, she came from Dunamis. The main character also understands that this condition was to reveal his secret to his mother, and also promise not to strip the aura, and he will allow her to continue to hide there. Now the young lady thinks that it seems that this is all that was required of her, but why is the woman silent? The lady with pink hair asks if that's all, to which the main character replies that, and the Empress claims that she already thought that the girl wanted to tell something important. After which the Empress turns around and claims she's known for a long time. Parisa, shocked, asks since when, but Her Majesty asks who the girl thinks she is, since she is, after all, the Empress. As soon as she heard her accent, she immediately understood. After all, she has a pronunciation typical of residents of port cities and citizens of the kingdom of Dunamis. The main character says it's understandable that, since the Empress knew where she came from, Tony thought it was strange, and didn't she doubt her? After all, what if she were a spy? After Parisa sees the Empress's reaction, he says that she is certainly not a spy. But the woman claims that this makes no sense, since she would not have been able to find out anything from her. The main character is surprised by this and asks what she is talking about, after which the woman screams. Let the girl think for herself. because who in their right mind would send someone like her to spy? After all, the girl is not perceptive, she has no ingenuity at all, and she is not even aware of what is happening in the capital, so her carelessness did not allow her to doubt for a second. At that moment, someone runs up to Her Majesty and addresses her. The maid announces that His Majesty the Emperor has finally returned. A little while later, the woman is already sitting with her husband, and he claims that he sincerely regrets that he had to leave her for so long. And no matter how many things fall on his head, he doesn't want her to listen to all these pathetic excuses, because he was inattentive to her, and it deeply wounds his loving heart. He replies to the Empress that it's no big deal, because he worked so hard. After which the man claims that on the way back, all he did was remember her tender appearance, and the woman tells her darling to stop looking at her already because the food is getting cold. The main character understands that the emperor is better preserved than she imagined, and she heard about it, that they have a 10-year age difference, and he also saw his dishonest debauchee as not yet one freshness. However, its beauty is striking, and it seems the Empress feels great. The awkwardness was obviously caused by her failure to introduce herself properly. After which, the main character turns to another maid and asks if His Majesty appears there rarely. She replies that if she didn't answer, he comes quite often. He has been very busy lately fighting a large forest fire in the east. And, of course, the Emperor possesses a magical attribute of water that heals wounds. The fire caused enormous damage to the environment, and even His Highness the Crown Prince helped revive the forest with the fertile power of the earth attribute. The main character realizes that she heard that in Lantius, only members of the imperial family are blessed. Meanwhile, the maid asks if this is amazing, since she's so proud to work for the imperial family. Pereza understands that's just how it looks from the outside. But in any case, she did not expect that she would so soon have the opportunity to meet the emperor in person, and although the Empress did not like the prince, for some reason the prince took care of her. And since she is now part of the Empress's inner circle, in the future she will often have to see the emperor. Meanwhile, the man says that, by the way, he heard that his wife did accompany the prince to the ball, and he thanks her for fulfilling his request. The emperor also claims that he heard many rumors about the prince's partner, and the woman claims that the top was her personal servant since they arranged her debut. The emperor then wonders if she has a new servant and would be curious to meet her in person. The main character, shocked, then thinks she shouldn't be interested in her. At this time, the Empress turns to Pereza and tells her to come over and say hello. After which, the main character approaches His Majesty and lifts her dress. She also introduces herself and says she's pleased to meet her. The man then wants to ask the main character something, but the Empress interrupts him and claims that this girl came from the provinces and is also a devoted servant who conscientiously carries out all orders. The man then asks if this is really true and looks at the main character. However, the girl is only wondering what he wants from her again, and whether their son, the Crown Prince, really has one brain between them. After all, both the father and his obnoxious son are acting cautiously. The man then says, okay, and he thinks this girl is different from the previous maids. The woman then asks if he really noticed. Pereza is respectable and honest, so she trusts her completely. This girl delights her with her sweet face day after day, and performs everything she asks of her perfectly. Meanwhile, the main character is shocked, wondering if the Empress really praised her, and the man claims that he was worried about why she couldn't get along with her personal servant, and he would be incredibly happy if Pereza stayed with her for a long time. The protagonist realizes that, judging by everything, things aren't so bad after all. The next day, the young lady reflects on how confident she was that her meeting with His Majesty had ended successfully. She is also ready to swear that the atmosphere yesterday was the most inviting, and that things were simply wonderful right up until the Emperor's departure. But now the girl stands at the door, wondering what the problem is. Then she reaches out to open the door. Well, one of the maids turns to the girl and says that it's better not to go there now, because she's not herself right now, and is raging and throwing tantrums. Pereza says that then she is even more obliged to intervene, since she is Her Majesty's personal servant. Marie says that when Her Majesty is not in the mood, you can't go to her, and so there are some unspoken rules, otherwise you can get hurt. But the main character then tells her to stop, because the Empress could also suffer. After which there is silence between them, The young lady says that everything is fine, and they may not go out because she goes out alone, but as soon as the girl steps through the door, then a vase flies at her, and the girl grabs it. The Empress screams, "Of course!" After all, who else could it have been? She also claims she didn't allow that impudent girl to enter, and the main character claims that in the mornings, Her Majesty usually goes out into the garden for a walk, and her responsibilities include helping with morning toilet and preparing dresses for going out. But the woman only screams that she did not give her an order, and the girl crossed all possible boundaries of what was permitted, otherwise she is simply mocking her. Paresa understands that she is crying, after which she tells Her Majesty that the broken one is her personal servant, and she can tell her about everything so that she is not disturbed. Well, the woman grabs a pillow from the bed and throws it at Paris, after which she screams out what the hell she understands. The Empress also notices that the girl caught the pillow, and Paresa claims that she too understands little. After all, Her Majesty doesn't tell her anything at all. The woman then once again asserts that she told her to get out of there, and that she doesn't want to see her, and that she's also fired, but the main character replies that she won't leave just like that. After all, if she did, she'd have to immediately re-register with the labor exchange, and also look for a new job. And she has a right to know the reason why she will be forced to leave her duties. Therefore, the young lady says that Her Majesty should tell her what it is that makes her so sad. Her Majesty at this time thinks what an unbearable girl this is, after which she wonders if the girl really thinks that she is sad. On the contrary, she's angry, and takes it out on those around her. Paresa says that, and perhaps that's true, but then she approaches the lady and claims that she is crying, and that something unbearably sad must have happened to Her Majesty. After this, the woman thinks that this girl really is wonderful. After all, she acts as if she sees right through her. Paresa says that perhaps the lady is irritated by the people standing outside the door. Meanwhile, the woman wonders where the girl was all this time before she came to her. A little while later, the knight informs the prince that he has been informed that His Majesty the Emperor stayed overnight at the Empress's palace, and that he arrived early this morning. The boy then says that, apparently, his mother's maid behaved quietly and his father did not leave him any special messages. The knight then claims that he was given this upon his return. These are invitations to balls, but the knight also asks His Highness if he is still tired. The guy then thinks that no matter how much he thinks about it, the maid is still quite cute. At this time, the knight turns to His Highness, and he comes out of his thoughts, after which the boy claims he'd like to know. But the prince realizes he hasn't been himself lately, and he constantly thinks only about this maid, so he understands that he is somehow overly excited. The guy also looks at one of the letters and wonders if it is from the Duchy of Eris. At this time, the main character is calming the Empress, and the maids outside the door ask if she has calmed down. One of them then replies that yes, after which she turns to Marie and suggests that they go, since it is their job to warn, since they at least tried. And Paresa will soon understand that the ship she boarded is rotten to the core. A little while later, Her Majesty asks the maid if it suits her, to which the main character replies, "Of course." After which she claims that everything is ready and that she will outshine anyone with her beauty. After this, the woman screams, "Is she really kidding me?" After which they even suggest redoing it. The main character understands that Her Majesty is not telling her anything at all, and perhaps she has not yet fully opened her heart to her. But it seems she's finally ready to take the first step. Her Majesty held the title of Baroness before her marriage, and this is the lowest ranking hierarchy. It belonged to a minor noble family. One day, at a ball, a girl met the Emperor, and His Majesty, falling in love with her at first sight, immediately proposed. The woman then asked the girl if she knew how many people looked at her with disgust because of her humble origins. People avoid her in society, and she constantly hears ridicule, but if she were to stand up to them, she would be called a cruel and selfish villain. The Empress also claims that she has been gradually stripped of her powers, and that her current Empress status is only conditional. And only in her palace can she breathe a sigh of relief, so she thinks that this is exactly what they were trying to achieve. The main character then turns to Her Majesty and asks what she herself wants, and also whether she wants to continue living like this, after which the woman is silent for a while, and then states that no, and she does not want this. Now they're heading off in a carriage, and the Empress cries out that, of course, she said so, However, she's not ready now, because nothing will change if she just shows up. And even more so, how can one go on a visit without warning in advance? But the main character then asserts that Her Majesty is, after all, an empress, and there is nothing that she cannot afford. But since she continues to insist, Pereza claims that she will go first. The social season of the Lantius Empire, it is safe to say, is crowned by the imperial family ball. It is believed that no one is capable of recreating the luxurious atmosphere that the Empress creates at a ball. Therefore, if you want to stand out in high society, then you should definitely not miss the imperial ball. However, everything changed after the Empress fell into eternal sleep, and the organization of the collapse passed into the hands of the eldest member of the imperial family, Duchess Amor. That is why their destination is the house of the Duchess of Amor, and right now they are there for Togo, to return the Empress to her former power, after which the main character whispers to the lady that now all powers will pass to her. When they are in the room, the Duchess states that she is glad that Her Majesty has finally decided to suggest that you do so. She also claims that she knew the lady had a hard time making this decision, and although she doesn't show her emotions in public, she guessed that it was incredibly difficult for Her Majesty, and an old woman like her simply couldn't help but notice her condition. At this point, the Empress asks if she is in charge of everything from now on, and her interlocutor replies that this is true, but there is very little time left, so she can suggest that she use as a basis what she has already managed to prepare. When the two go outside, the Empress claims that she is still at a loss. After all, it all turned out so easily. The main character claims that, frankly, she didn't expect it either, since the Duchess was in charge of the preparations all along. The lady with pink hair wonders if this is all real, and she can't believe that it's her turn to attend the imperial ball. The Duchess at this time turns to one of the maids and then states that she wants to convey her greetings to Duke Eris. So let her go to the duchy and convey this, to which the girl agrees. The woman then rises from her seat and claims that Her Majesty has paid her such a sudden visit, and she has been living for a very long time, so she has seen a lot, and a lot has really changed. But the Duchess also asks if it isn't fun to do things like that sometimes, because surely he would be pleased too. At this time, the Empress claims that she is tired and she is glad that the conversation went well, so active preparations must begin as early as tomorrow. The lady with pink hair also claims that she is curious whether people will come knowing that she is the organizer. Pereza tells Her Majesty not to worry, because soon they will all kneel before her, and she remembered those impudent women well. The Empress then suggests that the girl calm down, after which he asks her why she's so tired. The woman also says that everything worked out well and she was able to relax, and the main character suggests that the lady get some sleep. Well then, the main character feels how Her Majesty lays her head on her shoulder, after which he turns to her and thanks her. Pereza tells the lady not to worry about anything. Sometime later, invitations to the ball organized by the Empress were sent to all aristocratic families, starting with members of the imperial family, dukes, marquises, and counts, ending with the families of viscounts and barons. Even the smallest noble families from all over the provinces were no exception. The text of the letter was not replete with innovations, but there was one previously unfamiliar detail. The current Empress was listed as the organizer of the ball, and she would open the ball. A little while later, the aristocrats are already entering there, and one lady says that this is incredible, because it is not like the imperial balls they are used to. There are completely different sensations there, and the current Empress undoubtedly has a developed sense of beauty. Another girl agrees, but says she is surprised that the Duchess handed over her powers, and probably Her Majesty and His Highness have become quite close over the past few days. However, then the aristocrats look at the tribune where the Empress comes out and are surprised. The woman thanks everyone for honoring them with their visit and hopes that the aristocrats will all have a wonderful time today. People are a little embarrassed by the beautiful appearance of the Empress, and the main character understands that it is as she thought. There is not a single person in the room who is not taken aback by her incredible beauty. After which everyone claps, and the main character understands that step by step her mistress will be able to fully recover and she will return the Empress her lost authority. Pereza also addresses the Empress and says she did a wonderful job, and she believes the lady left no one there indifferent. The woman asserts that perhaps this is her reward for her hard work. But then someone else turns to Mother and says she's surprised him. It turns out to be the prince. He claims that he has not heard a single flattering comment so far. After this, the Empress says that the guy is shining brighter than usual today, but she doesn't like him. The woman also claims that he doesn't like points, and what will he do if the emperor does start talking about his daughter-in-law? She helped him with the furnishings, so let the guy be kind and take a closer look at someone. At this time, the main character notices the prince looking at her, and he only asks if her mother is talking about marriage. If that's the case, then she shouldn't worry, because when the time comes, he'll sort this out himself. Pereza wonders why he's staring at her with those little eyes. A little while later, someone else comes into the room and claims that she hasn't been there for a long time. After which, the woman also asks if she's too late and says she's glad to greet Her Majesty. The main character asks who she is, and the prince replies that she is the Duchess of Aries. He also says that this is his aunt and claims that he will go down and let the girl help his mother. And the main character turns to the Empress and wonders why he suddenly asks her to help her. Well, when she sees the state her mistress is in, she's surprised and immediately runs up to her. A little while later, the two of them are descending the stairs. At this time, the prince tells his aunt that he must admit that he did not expect to see her there at all, since she appeared so suddenly, without warning anyone, and must have decided to postpone her travels for a while. The woman replies that she could not miss the imperial ball personally organized by the Empress herself, and was so excited that she completely forgot about the time while preparing. At this time, the main character whispers to Her Majesty and asks if she is okay. Well, then another woman notices her and addresses Her Majesty. She walks up to the pink-haired lady and hugs her, claiming that she missed her. But she really wanted to meet her as soon as possible, because during the time they had not seen each other, the Empress had even managed to organize a ball herself. And it turns out she's even capable of that. It's so unusual, and the woman insists they'll see each other more often from now on. The woman also asks if the Empress is opposed. At this point, people in the hall begin whispering among themselves. Some of them claim that this was to be expected, and also whether the girl really thought that something could really change. She tried so hard to hold on to the prince more tightly, but it was all in vain. And she thought that she was strong and could cope, but this is not so, because she should have known her place. At this time, the emperor's sister states that she thinks it's time for her to go, but at that very moment, the empress falls to the floor. The main character immediately grabs her mistress, and the prince screams for the doctor to be brought there quickly, and the ball is over. At this time, the prince's aunt says that this is not right at all, and the empress must have worked so hard on the preparations. She completely forgot about rest. And somewhere, something was overlooked, after which the woman extends her hand, but the main character grabs her and tells her not to dare. The prince realizes that the girl has unconsciously begun releasing her aura again. But he warned her and asked her not to do it again, after which the guy tells the maid to help his mother get up, and she followed him because he would lead them to a separate room. The main character then let go of the woman's hand. He lifts his mistress into his arms and then heads after the prince. At this moment, someone addresses the Duchess of Aries. The woman then says it's been a while since she last saw the Countess. Ida replies that it's been many days since they last met, after which she also asks how her travels are going. The Duchess thanks you for your concern, and, by the way, says that this is the first time she has seen this lady, after which they even ask who she is. The red-haired lady replies that the girl's name is Pereza. She is Her Majesty's new personal servant, and as the lady could see, she cares very much about the Empress. The Duchess then smirks and states that she can't wait for the opportunity to come her way, to meet her in person and have a conversation. The Empress found herself in the palace at the age of 20. The pink-haired lady then sat over a cup of tea and claimed that she was gradually beginning to get used to life in the palace, and that all this was only thanks to Lady Aries. The Duchess then said that Her Majesty should not be shy about calling her by her first name. A little while later, the two girls were walking through the garden, and the Duchess asked the Empress how about having a tea party. After all, she will have the opportunity to get to know the ladies better, with whom she is currently having trouble getting along, and then she will be able to communicate with them as freely as with her. The lady with pink hair asked the woman if she really thought so, to which she replied that, of course she did. And besides, the Empress is so smart. and everyone will definitely like her. Soon the Empress began preparing for her first tea party. The girl chose tea and told the maid to prepare this tea too. Along with the tea set and sweets, the table was decorated with beautiful flowers selected especially for the tea. The girl also looked at the table and thought that she was wondering what exactly the other ladies would like. Thinking about the noble lady she was about to meet, the girl carefully prepared for the tea party for a whole week. And that day arrived. The Empress then asked one of her maids what time it was. After all, it would be good to not rush onto the bed table, after which she also wondered if she had incorrectly indicated the time in the invitations. A little while later, someone said the guests had arrived. But when the girl saw them, she was a little surprised. After all, an underage lady had arrived for the tea party, and what's more, there were even small children present among them. It was as if whoever selected the guests for the tea party had done so deliberately and wanted to show her what her level really was. The young ladies stood silently, their faces expressing awkwardness, one after another having tasted only tea. But that very same day, a gala ball was held at the Duke of Eris's estate. Although it was a spontaneous event, organized just 4 days beforehand. However, all the noble ladies of the capital were present at Nishiana's party. And the Empress had no one to blame, and she also thought about who she could complain to. But this was only the beginning. A little while later, one of the guys approached Her Majesty and apologized. Well, he claimed he wanted the lady to stop sponsoring him. The woman then asked what he was talking about, but the guy screamed that if he accepted help from her, he would never be given the role. Emperor Nishian's younger sister has concentrated power over secular society in her hands. Her influence was incredibly powerful, and people who accepted the Empress's support could not get roles on stage. All the noble ladies turned away from the Empress's favorite couturiers, so the woman wondered if she had said or done something wrong. And could it really be because she was from an impoverished family of minor nobles? The girl also understood that she couldn't understand what had made her hate him. No matter how hard she tried to understand and find the answer, she was unable to do so, and the Empress was finally pushed out of high aristocratic society. She became a lonely, sullen scarecrow, and her safe haven became the Empress's palace. And only there could she breathe a sigh of relief. Now the main character runs up to Her Majesty and says that she has finally woken up. The woman then puts her hand on her head and asks what happened to the ball. The main character replies that he had to interrupt because the lady lost consciousness. But she claims that she was too arrogant and never had the strength to resist Nishiana Iris. The main character then says that, so that's it, the Duchess showed up today to ruin Her Majesty's evening? The woman replies that she doesn't know why she's telling the maid all this, and that the woman had simply been absent from the capital for a long time, so she naively believed that everything would be fine even if she suddenly decided to return. But in the end, everything turned out this way, and she has been allowing herself a lot lately. Paresa tells the lady that this is not so. She also understands that when Her Majesty fainted, she lost control of herself again. And it was an uncontrollable impulse, so now the main character tells Her Majesty that she is free to do whatever she wants, and no one will dare to reproach her for it. When the girl recently lost control of her power, the abilities inside her whispered that the Empress was the very person she had been looking for so long. And the main character now kneels and addresses Her Majesty. The girl claims that she takes an oath and will sometimes be her sword and sometimes her shield. He also vows to protect Her Majesty from anyone who intimidates her. The woman is then a little surprised and asks why Paresa is doing this, after which the girl claims that she is very sorry, but she will not be able to explain now. However, when the time comes, she will definitely tell her everything. Well, she can promise the lady that she will be her reliable ally from now on, until she fulfills her destiny, after which the girl kisses her mistress's hand. And he swears that he will devote himself entirely to her. The Duchess is still at the ball at this time, but then the prince turns to her and tells his aunt that everyone else is gradually leaving, and that she should also return home. The woman claims that she is pleased when they take such good care of her, and the prince at this time claims that his mother has gone to rest a bit, and so wishes everyone a good journey. The Countess then says that they will do the same and says goodbye to Lady Eris. The guy then says that nothing has changed and his aunt looks happy. The woman claims that she has no idea what he is talking about, after which she says that perhaps it is time for her to take her leave, and also wishes goodnight to the prince. After this, the guy just remains silent and understands that he needs to learn more about the power of the kingdom of Dunamis. At this time, the Empress tells Perez that in order to break a promise on which her safety directly depends, a compelling reason must be found. At this time, the guy thinks how sad it is that they couldn't even really be alone together. The waters of the Sea of Aegis wash 3 states, and at the end of the divine era, the sea god Aegis, having split the earth into pieces and spent his last strength, he filled the sea, which exists to this day. And the divine blessing bestowed upon them was divided into 3 components, which are now passed down from generation to generation in each of the 3 coastal states. Among them was a component that endowed the bearers with the magical power of attributes. This mighty power was the foundation of the Lantius Empire and is bestowed only upon the direct heir to the throne. The component that allowed the use of the power of mysterious spirits extended the kingdom of Oligot. Unlike the Lantius, each member of the royal family has their own unique, personally granted ability. And finally, the kingdom of Dunamis, where the people have created a unique founding legend. The bearers of the blessing in this country are distinct from those who lead neighboring countries. They managed to suppress their enemies thanks to their physical strength and willpower, as they bravely fought on the battlefield until the end and managed to obtain a blessing. Ultimately, this blessing turned into a power that was bestowed upon people regardless of their origin. The bearers of the aura are entrusted with special responsibilities, and this is called destiny. Now, the main character understands that she cannot sleep, and this is what it means to follow her duty. Although she received a blessing, for a long time she could not figure out what her purpose was. Well, now she knows that the path she must take has been found. First, she needs to focus on protecting the Empress, and then, step by step, she will definitely fulfill her duty. At this time, the Duchess burns the letter, and also tells Baron Cowell that they haven't seen each other for a long time. The man then asks if everything is okay with the lady, and thanks her for the invitation because he is so glad that she has not forgotten about him. The Duchess suggests skipping the formalities and asks how things are going with her assignment. The Baron claims that the lady has nothing to worry about because everything is exactly as they planned. After which the woman says that she has serious expectations on this matter, and then she proposes. To see how long this maid can hold out. The next morning, the protagonist wakes up and realizes her body feels lighter than usual. The girl also thinks whether it is time to start work, after which she leaves her room. There she meets Marie and greets her, but the maid just ignores the girl. She then turns to another maid and says that even though they were given the day off after the ball, it is still hard without a vacation. And they of course received bonuses, but they would still like to rest longer, to which she replies that she completely agrees. The main character wonders if the girl didn't hear her, but she understands that they definitely met each other's eyes. Then the girl sees several more maids coming out of their room. The main character addresses them, and the lady with red hair is about to answer. But her friend immediately hits her with her hand, and also claims that they should have been preparing to receive guests in the morning. So they need to go quickly, otherwise they'll get a full dressing down. The main character is left alone after this, and the maid, moving on, asks her colleague if she saw the stupid face of this girl. And she brought this attitude upon herself. She swears that this girl didn't even understand what she had done. At this time, Pereza is thinking about what they were told, that the negative consequences even spread to her. And Marie understands that she regrets, but she can't do anything because Pereza chose this path herself. At this time, the main character is thinking, what kind of a bunch of fools is this, because they can't scare her with such tricks. A long time ago, 2 girls stood before a bird's grave. One of them said that the bird had fallen into eternal sleep. Before this, the cat grabbed the bird, and one of the girls tried to save it. She also claimed that she had so much hope that the bird would survive if she treated it. But she stopped eating and drinking, and finally fell into eternal sleep. Her friend then took the girl by the hand, and she claimed that she did everything possible, so she thinks that the bird was very happy until its last breath. So don't let Lavia cry. Nishia Eris is the emperor's younger sister and princess of the Lantius Empire. For the first time in several generations, a long-awaited girl was born into the imperial family, and she always received endless love from her brother and father. As for marriage, Duke Eris was her conscious choice, and they have a son who will become a worthy successor in the future. The main character then says that it's incredible because she's just a perfect fly, as if she stepped out of a painting. The Empress replies that it is precisely impossible to understand what she is planning just by looking at the pretty wrapping paper, because she is doing everything to completely drive her crazy. The lady with pink hair claims that aristocrats all move in the same social circles and that they are all rotten to the core. Paresa asks if the lady says that since that tea party there has not been a day when she has not tried to cause her problems, and she thinks that then the Empress created a furor in high society. The lady with pink hair then asks if everything would be so good if she got rid of 22 personal maids. Each of them eventually became Nishiana's accomplice, and they watched with anticipation, trying to seize the moment for humiliation, and therefore she could not find a personal servant for herself. Paresa says that it is clear, after which the lady with pink hair looks at her, and the girl immediately gets down on her knees and also claims that she will do everything in her power. The Empress then tells her to understand her head. She also recalls saying that they sent their minion there again, and you can't even count on your fingers how many maids she kicked out of there. After which the Empress also turns to Paresa and asks if she is on her side. The protagonist replies, "Of course." Her Majesty asks if the girl understands that not many people have sided with her over all this time, and none of them tolerated Nishiana's manipulations, because they all simply ran away. That's why she really hopes that Paresa won't do that, because she wants the girl to teach her. Because now she's going to confront Nishiana, and she's wondering what she should do to protect Paresa. The main character realizes that after discovering her true purpose, she's realized something. Even if she doesn't wield a sword, she's ready to fight for her duty at any moment. The emergence of a direct threat to Her Majesty's well-being allowed her to realize this, and now this is her whole life. But the girl thinks that she is still a little awkward, because Her Majesty probably does not share her feelings. After which the main character says that then first of all it would be necessary to contact His Highness, because they need to meet and talk. After this, the Empress screams out who needs it, and the main character asks if it turns out that she can take her ball, because she could do it. A little while later, the prince asks his mother how she feels, and replies that she will go, and she has no trouble moving around. The guy then says that it seems like his mother has come to visit him for the first time, and she can't even imagine how happy he is, after which the guy also asks what she wanted to talk to him about. The woman then starts to say something, but the main character claims that she will tell everything, but first asks the lady to leave the room. The prince then says that he will do as the girl tells her and shows the maid to leave. He also turns to his personal maid and says that he also has something to tell her. The guy asks why she broke her promise to him and whether his mother already knows. Paresa claims that this is what she was going to talk to him about during yesterday's ball. She swore allegiance and a knight's oath to Her Majesty. The boy is a little surprised by this, and the main character wonders if he will guess, and she goes out herself, thus confirming that she is a knight of Bologna. So the girl wonders if it's too early, but the guy then asks why she took the knight's oath. The girl replies that, of course, it is for the sake of opposing anyone who dares to threaten the safety and well-being of Her Majesty, even if that person turns out to be His Highness. The Empress then asks in shock what Paresa is saying. The main character then asks whose side the prince is on. The guy is silent for a moment, and then smirks. In the next second, the main character sees him bursting into laughter. The girl wonders what made him laugh so much. At this time, the Empress thinks that it is high time for her to come to her senses, and that her servant sometimes behaves too impudently. The prince at this time claims that it was rude, and asks if she is on whose side he is. The Empress then says that's what she's talking about, and he's a damn shady character. He's baring his teeth so much, and that's clear evidence of hidden intentions, by the way, and who knows what he has in mind. After this, the guy says that there is nothing that can be done about it, since he is only the crown prince. The Empress then asks who he is, if not the crown prince, and the main character then states what this guy wants to say, that the crown prince is forced to follow the will of the emperor, to which he replies that this is true. After this, the Empress rises from her seat and says that it is time for them to go, which surprises the main character, but the prince then asks the Empress if he can borrow her personal servant for a while so they can chat there, and he will immediately return her, to which the woman replies that he should do whatever he wants, after which she slams the door on him. At this time, the prince tells the girl to sit down because they have something to discuss, but Paresa says that it is not proper for servants to sit in the presence of the prince. The guy replies that the prince doesn't mind, Or maybe she prefers to look down on her interlocutor. The young lady immediately sits down and states that she will sit down, so she asks him not to say that. The prince then says fine, and they can get straight to business. The girl mentions the oath of knightly loyalty, but something tells him there's more to it, and she has learned what her purpose is, and is now fulfilling it as a knight. Parisa says he was absolutely right on target, and how smart he is. He insists it's all perfectly logical, and it would be strange not to have figured it out. Well, even so, no one could suspect her of this. One good prince hit her aura with his energy, although she certainly put on quite a show. The girl then thanks him, after which the prince claims that, considering that she is in his debt, she does not want the emperor to find out about her secret, because he believes that this would complicate everything. Parisa claims that, of course, she doesn't want this, but she wonders how he knew that she did it because of her destiny. Because it's a completely different special aura and it's difficult to simply feel it. The guy replies that he didn't know, even though he had made a premature conclusion. But a blessing in dunamis is an exceptional thing, and destiny is also a phenomenon of sorts. People who gain power usually use it for the good of the kingdom, but she, although she achieved knighthood, ultimately fled her homeland. And he thought that her mission, or, in other words, her duty, must be somehow special and, he would say, atypical. The main character claims that, to her surprise, His Highness was extremely frank for the first time. To which the guy replies that, frankly speaking, he intends to build a trusting relationship. And although he acted in accordance with the imperial will, he and his father still thought completely differently. The main character then asks for forgiveness for her insolence, but she simply cannot help but ask. Does this mean His Majesty isn't being entirely honest with the Empress? The young man claims that, of course, his father knows about the conflict between his mother and aunt. And besides, he thinks that his mother also guesses about this, which is why she was upset not long ago. After all, she says that in this he is similar to his father, after which the main character asks if he really knows about everything. But the guy interrupts her and claims that he simply understands that he is claiming the position of emperor, and instead of taking sides in the conflict, he should try to resolve it. The guy also asks the girl why she thinks her aunt left the capital for 2 years, and she hardly traveled. Perhaps it is a matter of your father's order, given for the good of your mother, and the main character asks if it is working. That all this time he was justifying himself by fulfilling his duty, and what is this then if not avoiding the problem? The prince claims such statements could lead to problems for Parisa, but the protagonist maintains that she has not sworn allegiance to the imperial family and serves only Her Majesty the Empress. She suffered for 10 years, and the last 2 years were no exception. His Highness knew about this, and even in the absence of the Duchess, those who were subject to her influence knew about it. They looked down on Her Majesty, humiliated her, and spread dirty rumors about her. The guy claims that he is aware of this, as Her Majesty has complained about such treatment more than once, but the Emperor only replied that Nishana would not have done so intentionally, and he was sure of it. After all, there will definitely be a reason for this, and he promised that he would talk to her, after which he asked her not to be offended. And the main character claims that the worst thing is that Her Majesty feels guilty before both of them. Therefore, no excuses work there, and he and His Majesty were negligent. The guy then says that let everything be so and they ignore the problems, but her idealized picture in her head and what is actually happening are two different things. His Majesty warned the aristocracy many times, and they tried in every way to prevent ridicule and also made sure that it did not dry up the line, because he personally did this. So doesn't the lady think he knows more about their behavior than she does? Parisa argues that it's not surprising that she knows nothing, and isn't that even a problem? But the main character then asks if Her Majesty knows what the two of them are doing. After all, she suffers more than they think, and she is not going to ignore it. Perhaps it was noble of His Majesty to remain neutral, but it is not in her nature to watch someone suffering indifferently, so she will still repeat herself and ask him again. The girl asks whose side His Highness is on. He's for the Empress, or the Duchess. The guy understands that for some reason he cannot lie, looking into those eyes, and also suggests doing this. Previously, he talked about a trusting relationship and if the girl wants him to be open again. And having revealed his position, let her fulfill 2 conditions. The first is to repay the debt during the imperial ball. The main character thinks how petty he is, and the prince claims that it is the latter. that she wouldn't refuse his offers to meet. 3 days later, someone said he was pleased to welcome Her Majesty. The Empress then asks who it is that has arrived and whether it is really Countess Bushi, to which the woman smiles and asks if the lady slept well that night, since it is a great honor for her to see the Empress again. A little while ago, the main character asked if the lady had forgotten about the Countess's visit and if it was time for them to get ready little by little. But the woman screamed, asking what she was talking about, since she had refused. Pereza said that if she continued to avoid those around her, things would not become easier for her, and even though the Duchess surrounded herself with a crowd of her henchmen, not all the aristocrats took her side. Therefore, Her Majesty also needs to make sure that people are drawn to her, and first, she should gain the favor of people like the Countess, because she cannot reject those who clearly treat her well. The woman was silent for a while after this, and understood that she herself did not want to reject them. She also remembers the faces of everyone who was kind to her, and really wants to improve relationships with them. The Countess at this time claims that she could not afford to come empty-handed, so she has a gift, and she personally composed this flower arrangement for her. The Empress then says how beautiful this is. However, she suggests leaving the gifts for later, and also going inside quickly, because she invites them all for a cup of tea. A little while later, the main character is already pouring tea, and the Countess claims that, frankly speaking, from their very first meeting she was enchanted by Her Majesty. She had never experienced anything like this even with her husband. The lady with pink hair then says that she couldn't even imagine that a lady could have such an opinion about her, and if she doesn't mind, she would like to see her more often. The woman also says that she must take responsibility for what she has done. The Countess then tells Her Majesty that she would be happy. At this time, Pereza hears someone approaching and addressing Her Majesty, as well as the Countess, after which he dares to suggest moving to another room. At that very moment, the prince enters and says that this would drive one crazy, and she is perhaps the only servant in the world who reacts in this way to the crown prince. The Countess then asks what the prince is saying and let him pass quickly. A little while later, they are already in the drawing room and looking at the production. The Empress was surprised to see this, and the Countess asked her to forgive her, and then she had to ask His Highness for advice. He explained that the lady loved to draw, and it so happened that she did too. The Countess claimed that she had persuaded him to help with the preparations because she really wanted to draw with the Empress. The Countess also asks how she feels about this, and it seems she liked their surprise, because if so, then she is very happy. The Empress replies that the lady is right, that she is delighted, and that it truly is a wonderful gift. Meanwhile, the protagonist pulls out a chair for Her Majesty and asks her to sit down. The girl watches as His Majesty puts on his cape and asks if he is also going to draw, to which the guy replies that yes. After all, since everyone has gathered, he cannot stay away, so let the girl not be surprised when she sees it. The main character then wonders if he really draws well. A short time later, the Empress is already accompanying the Countess. She also says that she is immensely grateful to her for today's visit, but the Countess asks why this Empress, since it is she who should thank her for such a warm welcome. The lady with pink hair says that, although it is small, she also prepared a gift for her. And she will be very happy if the Countess likes it, because this is her favorite flower tea. And she also asks the Countess that the next time she visits her, she should feel at home. The green-haired lady then smiles and agrees. Meanwhile, the main character stands next to His Highness. The guy asks her if she thinks this is too much and if she should stop, but then the girl falls to her knees. And also, looking at what His Highness drew, he claims that she cannot restrain herself because she finds it so funny that her stomach hurts. And this truly is astounding. The prince then claims that his skills are at an incredibly high level, and he wonders if this is not so, after which the main character looks at the drawing of the Empress. And also, what the Countess drew and claims is not true at all. At this moment, the Empress enters the room, and he wonders what they're both talking about again, and the girl even got down on her knees. Pereza replies that they did nothing special, and, to tell the truth, she expected a little more from His Highness's drawing skills. Well, the woman just tells them to answer immediately what the two of them talked about after she left a couple of days ago. Pereza wants to say what they were discussing about His Majesty's legs, interrupting the girl, and he claims that Countess Boucher has become their ally at the right time, because she is capable and definitely trustworthy, which is why he has been keeping an eye on her for a long time. The Countess married early, and so has been in high society for a long time. Thanks to her position, even her aunt's influence does not extend to her. The Empress claims that this is of course good for her, but the prince is never shown that he supports her. And is he sure that everything will be okay if he so openly takes her side, rejecting Nishiana? And what about their neutrality? After this, the guy tells the Empress that her close servant is very faithful to her, and her words touched him and also made him rethink his point of view, so he hopes that his mother will be able to forgive him for his past indifference. The Empress is surprised by this, and the main character claims that the beginning has already been made. Countess Boucher had already taken her side, and besides, Her Majesty had certainly brought the attention of noble ladies to the Claw, which are not recognized as Nishiana's favorites, and although they are all firmly connected, they are subject to a strict hierarchy. It is incredibly difficult for a lady from a lower class and a newcomer to adapt to such a society. Well, the Empress then says that it is obvious that everyone is frightened by unfair treatment, which Nishiana will reward them in full for the choice made in her favor, because not everyone is as brave as Pereza. The main character replies to Her Majesty that she knows very well how much she cares for people, and the prince claims that this is one of the reasons why Pereza turned to him for help, and let the lady be confident that he is able to provide his people with proper protection. And the lady had not forgotten that the emperor's birthday was approaching very soon. Meanwhile, the Duchess heads to the cemetery with a bouquet of flowers. She lays the flowers at one of the graves, after which she tells Lavia that she has come, and just think how much water has already flowed under the bridge. Every country celebrates its monarch's birthday with particular pomp, and Lantius, where the emperor is revered as a god, is no exception. There, the emperor's birthday is celebrated on a much grander scale. Aristocrats from all over the empire flock to the capital for a gala ball in order to have an audience with the emperor. And even in the presence of the Duchess of Eris, despite her impeccable reputation as the emperor's wife, the Empress must shine brighter than anyone else. The prince claims that even aristocrats from the top of social society are obliged to express their hypocritical respect to her on this day, and no one would dare to openly express their worthless position in such a situation. At this time, the Empress wonders what she should do then, and the prince asserts that his mother is free to do whatever she wishes. After all, she's an empress and can afford it. Many noble families will be participating in the event. Many of them are from the provinces, and she will have a wonderful chance to show them all her nobility. Well, after this, the Empress asks if she can handle this, to which the prince replies that she has nothing to fear now. After all, he had already said that he would help her, and the lady only had to trust him. That same evening, the woman comes into her room and says that she has a headache, after which she also asks what Pereza thinks about what the Crown Prince said. The heroine replies that it seems His Highness isn't the type to lie about such things, and that he might actually be able to help them. The pink-haired lady asserts that the prince is indeed a clever fellow, and she thinks that he has a lot of ideas, but she still can't figure out why he decided to take her side. But then the woman says that if you think about it, it wasn't long ago that they talked to him alone, after which she asks what the prince said to Pereza. The main character remembers how he told Pereza not to refuse his offers to meet, and the girl claims that he asked her not to refuse if he ever gave her a task. The Empress then cries out, asking if he knows whose servant she is, or why she even agreed to such a thing. Pereza replies that of course she set the conditions, and that is not to ask for anything that could in any way harm the lady, and perhaps he wants a reliable person to be next to her. The Empress then says that okay, let's forget about it, because even if he had planned something, she still wouldn't be informed. At this time, the knight turns to His Highness and asks if he can find out what he was thinking then. After all, he hadn't planned to interfere before. The prince then asked if he was talking about the conflict between his mother and aunt. He also wonders if the knight is worried about him and thinks he can't handle it. His interlocutor replies that, in principle, he is the heir to the throne, and no one would dare threaten him. He asked purely out of curiosity. However, he claimed that this was the will of His Majesty, and therefore did not fit in with the Empress and Duchess. He's interested in the reason why he broke this unspoken rule, while the prince claims he simply couldn't resist. She said that until now, she and her father had been careless, and he had failed to refute it. And also this girl looked at him with her clear blue eyes and the expression on her face, as well as the eyes that he saw then. It's impossible to understand unless you've seen it with your own eyes. He was drowning in them, and so deeply. For a moment he was speechless. The knight thought his highness was hopeless, and the prince claims that this is how it all happened, so he tells Claude that he is going to entrust him with one very important task. At the ball in honor of the emperor's birthday, let him carefully ensure that not a single trash bag of parasach dares to touch his ugly head with his dirty hands, and if necessary, let him accompany her. And just in case, he warns the guy beforehand not to even think about flirting with her. The knight then exclaims why he would do that, and also says that since His Majesty has entrusted everything to him, what does he intend to do himself? To which he replies that he plans to be absent that day. Meanwhile, the protagonist enters her room and finds it in disarray. She sighs and realizes that even a locked door won't stop them. She notices that nothing is missing and wonders why they even did that. Well, then she understands that she can't rely only on her feelings, because an ordinary person would not be able to tolerate such an attitude. First, they completely isolated her from society, and now they have made it clear that her life is at risk at any moment. And the girl understands that they have essentially challenged her, and she has no reason to tolerate this. Well, then someone else approaches Peraza. It turns out to be Marie, after which the main character says that they collectively decided to ignore her. And he asks why the girl came now, and answers that she doesn't have time for idle chatter, and will get straight to the point. Peraza understands why everything turned out the way it did, and before it's too late, she asks her to stop being stubborn and to tell her that she'd made a mistake out of ignorance, and then perhaps she'd spare her. But the main character puts her hand on Marie's shoulder. She apologizes, but insists she made no mistakes. Her interlocutor insists she's not joking and that she's wrong to think Her Majesty can protect her. But Peraza argues that the girl should have been more careful with her words, since she, after all, serves in the Empress's palace, and let her think at her leisure about which of them made the wrong choice. Marie then pushes the young lady's hand away and cries out that it was stupid of her to try to help her. And now let Peraza take care of herself, and also know that even if she later regrets what she did, it will be too late. The main character then asks to allow Marie to clarify things no matter how much time has passed. It is important to realize your mistakes, and if the girl ever changes her mind, she will be waiting for you at any time. After this, Marie remains silent and then snorts. You realize she didn't listen to Paris. The girl also thinks that there is about a month left until the emperor's birthday. The next day, the empress greets Duchess Boucher and asks if this is the same lady she mentioned. The woman replies that it is Countess Hartley, a dear friend of hers since her youth. The girl then greets Her Majesty. The empress smiles and also claims that there is no need to be so nervous, because she just wants to make friends with them and she has no one to drink tea with. The countess asks if this is really so, and claims that, to be honest, she is a little embarrassed, because she never expected that in Her Majesty's life she would be so beautiful. The main character smiles after this and understands that Countess Boucher has pleasantly surprised them. From that very tea party onward, the countess began inviting provincial aristocrats to the palace, and over time, all of them were introduced to Her Majesty. Miraculously, the countess managed to maintain a relaxed atmosphere. And besides, she managed to grasp the trends maturing in the new team, and a circle of common interests was formed. Consequently, the issue of Her Majesty's influence was left aside. The lady was thrilled by the sudden opportunity to enjoy cultured society, and so the positive experiences kept accumulating. Ultimately, they helped the depressed Empress feel human again. New friends reminded Her Majesty that she has something to respect herself for. Their main character understands that the appearance of the Duchess of Eris has negatively affected her well-being. So now she's happy that everything is getting better. Meanwhile, someone else turns to Peraza. It turns out it's His Highness, and the guy claims that he needs to talk to her, so let the girl stay a little while. The main character, looking at his drawing, almost falls over laughing again, and the guy says that once she figures it out, she should come back and jump over to him for a minute. After all, there's something he'd like to share with her personally. The protagonist is then a little surprised and realizes there are 21 days left until the emperor's birthday. The maids whisper among themselves, and one of them asks if the girl has heard that Her Majesty is friends with provincial aristocrats. but that doesn't mean she's made any reliable connections. At this time, another maid screams, "Don't they have anything better to do?" And the girls get a little scared. At this point, the red-haired lady suggests to her colleague that they just pass by, but he replies that no, they're standing there and wagging their tongues, so they can't let it go unnoticed. It would be better for them not to open their mouths in vain. After this, there were 16 days left until the emperor's birthday. His Highness's aunt entered the room, after which he tells his sweet nephew that he wanted to see her and does not ask why he needed her. The guy then asks why this pretense, since she surely knows better than most that ingratiating himself won't undermine his neutrality. However, he wanted to meet her because he has something to offer. Therefore, the last one sent wants advice. She must already guess what we will talk about. The blue full moon rises for the second time this month, and it is the mirror of Aegis. A little while later, there are 3 days left until the emperor's birthday, and the main character turns to Her Majesty and also claims that she already has a dress that she bought with her vacation money, and does she really need a new one? Well, the woman claims that at the imperial ball, everyone present must maintain the bar, and she, after all, is her personal servant, so she, more than anyone else, is obliged to worry about her appearance. The main character realizes that she doesn't like the balayage, and the emperor's birthday has finally arrived. The aristocrats approach His Majesty and ask him to accept their congratulations. The man then says that may their families be blessed. The other aristocrats are then a little embarrassed at the sight of Her Majesty the Empress. One of them claims that today is the first time he sees her and she is truly amazing. Another girl asks if the gentleman thinks so too, since her beauty truly is astounding. Someone else asks if they're saying this is their first meeting, and it's worth noting that the Empress is always very polite. However, then one of the aristocrats claims that, however, there are unflattering rumors circulating about Her Majesty, and are they really true? After all, they say that she is extremely cruel, stupid, and arrogant, and also a villain who tortures her charges. Just give her a reason, and she'll get rid of them. Well then, one of them claims to see a beautiful and sweet lady there. So isn't the refutation of these ridiculous tales right before their eyes? Well then another lady says that we shouldn't forget that she has been married to the emperor for 10 years in a row. And if she had been declared a villain, they would have lived so many years together. At this time, someone else announces that the gala ball in honor of His Majesty the Emperor's birthday is declared open. First of all, there will be a special ceremony of appointment and presentation of the best knights for awards. The emperor at this time turns to his wife and states that he has appointed new knights to the Empress's palace and that all of them are recommended by the crown prince, since he personally controls the knights, so they are definitely trustworthy. The Empress understands that it is the crown prince again, after which she says that's it. And the man also claims that since they are married, today is a significant day in its own way, and that is why he asks her to accept this as a gift. The Empress then thanks His Majesty for his concern, and states that she is very glad. After this, one of the knights approaches Her Majesty, and the Emperor states that from now on he serves in the Empress's palace. There, in front of everyone present, let him solemnly swear that until the end of his days he will be devoted only to the Empress. Her Majesty then tells him to raise his head, after which the guy looks at the Empress. And he is shocked by how beautiful she is, after which the guy takes the lady's hand. And he tells Her Majesty that he swears his fidelity to her, with all sincerity. The main character claps at this time and understands that this is to be expected, because it is impossible to simply take and ignore Her Majesty. At their first meeting, she caught her breath, because her appearance alone is her undoubted weapon, and the beauty of her mistress is unimaginable, because she evokes fear and awe. That is why she so stubbornly hindered the Empress's social activity, and, in the end, it was carefully planned. But today is a completely different story. A short time later, the main character is already heading toward Her Majesty and suggests that she hurry. After all, the sooner everything is ready, the more time will be left for Togo to catch his breath. Well, the Empress is wondering if everything will be okay, because as soon as she sees Nishiana during the ball, she feels ill, and the woman is wondering what if she loses consciousness again from excitement. After all, this is such an important event, but the main character tells the lady not to worry, because the Duchess won't come, that's for sure. Meanwhile, the prince suggests his aunt go. It's high time to meet with Mother. the Empress asks if the Duchess won't come to the ball. After which he asks if the girl could have said this earlier, but the main character replies that she was afraid that the lady would relax too much then. She also asks for forgiveness, but the deed is done, so today she will be able to deservedly enjoy the ball as an Empress, and the girl also suggests not allowing His Highness's hard work to be in vain. The lady with pink hair only snorts after this and says that she is interested in why the Crown Prince is hiding so diligently and what he is trying to achieve. Isn't he pursuing his own personal goals? And she doesn't like all of this. Paresa tells the Empress that it seems he didn't deserve such disparaging remarks this time, since the Crown Prince resorted to his powers for her. At this time, the woman turns to Paresa and then screams out what she actually forgot there. After all, isn't she going to the ball today, and what is she doing instead of preparing? So let her immediately take her feet in her hands and quickly go get dressed. The prince at this time is heading with his aunt to the cemetery, which he asserts more than anything else. They are united by their love for Lavia, and after that she asks if the guy thinks the same. The prince replies that this is indeed the case. Lavia is the previous empress of the Lantius Empire. She was also the crown prince's biological mother and was also a longtime friend of Nishiana Lantius. In the year when the crown prince turned 6 years old, the empress suffered an unfortunate fate and left this world. The crown prince remembered well that terrible time, and after being plunged into Lavia's eternal sleep, Nishiana became much more irritable. In one of them, a woman screamed that he knew what to take and it was all because of him. After some time, she seemed to return to her previous state. However, the black darkness continued to grow inside her, and Nishiana could not accept the immersion into the eternal sleep of Lantia, and denial has also turned into a terrible obsession. Now the prince is looking at the moon, and he understands that this is the mirror of Aegis, who appears together with the fire demon during the second full moon of the month. At this moment, the guy tells the auntie to step back. At night, when the full moon shines white high in the sky, the sea god's influence is significantly strengthened. Therefore, the prince proposed to his aunt that Lavialantius be resurrected. He is the most powerful mage in the history of the empire, and also a man who wields the fertile magic of the earth attribute that gives life. The crown prince is also the biological son of Lavialantius, who is capable of performing unimaginable miracles with his own hands. At this time, the aunt wants to hug her sister, but when she does so, she becomes distracted. The prince collapses to the floor at this moment. On the birthday of Emperor Lantius, who was revered as a demigod, whose power and strength were hidden in the solemn atmosphere of the holiday, the Empress was finally able to enjoy what was rightfully hers for the first time in 10 years. On that magical night, festive lights lit up the sky above the capital. However, there was something they had all conveniently forgotten, and it's past midnight. So today is the day one woman left this world forever, and someone never forgot her, not even for a moment. A little while later, the prince is already returning, and the knight immediately runs up to him, and he asks where Duchess Iris is. The boy replies that she should have returned by now and tried not to show it, but she's probably very depressed. The knight at this time wants to say something about the Duchess, but the prince tells him to stop. After all, he also spent a lot of energy and feels lousy, so he suggests going back. The boy also remembers how 17 years ago, when he was 5 years old, his mother approached him. She also told the guy to come to her because she wanted to hug him, to which he agreed. The woman said that he would definitely become a wonderful ruler and asked how he was feeling and whether he had any injuries, to which he replied that he had not. Lavia also asked the boy if he was upset with Togo because she hadn't been able to be there lately. He replied that his mother had told him everything 2 years ago, and he was an adult now and understood everything. Now the boy is in the carriage and says the word "mama." The knight asks His Highness what happened, to which he replies that nothing happened, he just remembered something, although he should certainly be concentrating on pressing matters. The knight then asks if the conflict between his aunt and mother has escalated, and the guy claims that his mother declared war, after which he also wonders how long they can hold out. Meanwhile, the knight wonders if His Majesty has agreed to help them, to which he replies that he is doing what he thinks is necessary and is not sure whether it will actually help them. A little while later, someone tells His Highness that he was holding on to the Duchess of Iris. to which he replies that yes. But it's personal, so he can't afford unnecessary details. The guy also asks how the girl is doing, and apparently the ball ended well. Teresa replies that yes, and Her Majesty enjoyed it too. Unfortunately, they did encounter some difficulties, and this morning an endless stream of letters poured into the palace. Every single one of them from aristocrats who were close to Her Majesty. They described problems on the estate's grounds, fires, robberies, and so on. Ultimately, all this prompted the Empress to postpone all social events for a while. At this time, the Empress gets angry and screams that this is again the machinations of Nishiana. She wondered why she'd gone quiet and whether she wasn't tired of it. However, before, she'd only been making fun of her. But now he's reaching out with his nasty little hands to those closest to her. The main character realizes that the last few days have been especially quiet. True, she calmed down for a short time and now she has begun to act, so the girl is wondering what the Duchess is trying to achieve. A little while later, one of the maids asks if this could be somehow connected to the anniversary of the previous Empress's entry into eternal sleep. The main character asks what she is talking about, and the maid claims that it is because there are no public holidays scheduled before or after the Emperor's birthday. It so happened that the Empress fell into eternal sleep on the eve of the Emperor's birthday, and she remembers that before they celebrated the whole week. But now the holidays were moved 6 days earlier. And it's no wonder, after all, she'd heard that a special relationship had developed between the Duchess of Eris and the late Empress. That's probably why the Duchess wasn't particularly active in social circles during this period. At this time, the main character thinks about the late Empress and thinks that she is the Crown Prince's biological mother. A lot of thoughts are going through her head now, but she doesn't think she should jump to conclusions. At this time, the guy asks what their next plan is, and the girl replies that there is no clear plan at the moment. After all, Her Majesty also needs time to catch her breath. Besides, why didn't the dress she ordered for the walk arrive? So this afternoon, she's been assigned to visit Viscountess Venus. At this time, the guy says that she has too many worries for a personal servant. The girl then sighs and says that since he knows that she is busy, then why did he call her? To which he replies that he did it simply because he missed her. A little while later, the girl is already heading off in a carriage. She sighs and realizes that the Crown Prince has been acting very strange lately. And just like that, whenever he feels like it, he calls a person to chat about nothing. Teresa understands that she will never believe that people are talking about missing and waiting at a business meeting. And the girl thinks it's incredible to think that the Crown Prince could be perverted, but behind every skirt there's a miserable Don Juan. Paris has spent a significant portion of her life devoted to knights, and fortunately, she has absolutely no idea what love is. Meanwhile, the guy says how itchy he is, and who is cursing at him like that. A little while later, the girl gets out of the carriage and thanks the coachman for taking her, after which she invites him to drive on. The girl also understands that the Viscountess's atelier must be somewhere there. Then she sees a crowd of people. The main character thinks that there is a studio in that direction, after which she asks for forgiveness and asks to be allowed to pass. But when the girl comes closer, she sees that the Viscountess is fainting. Teresa immediately asks what happened. The worker claims that it looks like thieves broke into the store last night, and this happened after she arrived at work. Fortunately, the cash register was not touched, but all the dresses were ruined. The Viscountess was shocked and lost consciousness. The protagonist understands from this face alone that there's clearly something there, even without an investigation. And this is the kind of treatment that comes to those who treat Her Majesty well. After which, the girl claims that the Viscountess must first be carried inside and asks to disperse the crowd that has gathered, to which the worker agrees. 2 hours later, the Viscountess comes to, thanks Teresa, and apologizes for the promised dress. The protagonist interrupts the woman and says there's nothing she can do about it, and it's no big deal, because she's sure Her Majesty will understand. Teresa also asks if they have any ideas about who the criminal might be, because they won't sit idly by, so let the Viscountess trust them, because they will make every effort. To restore her peace of mind, the woman thanks the protagonist and asks them to take care of her. A little while later, the main character leaves the studio and thinks about what to do with it. After all, the dress still hasn't worked out, so what should the essence of Her Majesty be like now? The girl didn't think that so much would fall on her at once, because until now, the Empress had not had many friends, and the new clothes that were supposed to lift her spirits are now ruined. The girl thinks that this won't work, and in that case she will entertain her herself, be it a prank, foolishness, or a trick. After which the main character asks to stop the carriage. Well, when the carriage stops, the girl says that she needs to go to the Empress's palace, and asks to go faster if possible. But at that very moment, someone steps out of the carriage and grabs the girl's hand. Paresa realizes that, of course. After all, she is the person closest to the Empress, and to everything else. The Duchess isn't conniving, and she too could be a target, after which the girl grabs the guy by the arm, and he knocks it over. The coachman then also swings at the girl, and people on the street ask what's going on and whether a fight has broken out. After which someone even says to call security, and the girl understands that there are too many extra eyes there, so she cannot use force. Well, then she protects herself with her hand, and red liquid immediately starts coming out of it. The coachman then drops the whip and cries out that he only wanted to scare them. At this time, the guys lying on the floor begin to come to their senses, and one of them screams, "What are these pathetic cowards doing? Let them quickly grab this girl." However, at that very moment the main character steps on his foot, causing him to fall and writhe in pain. Another mercenary immediately runs up to the girl and is about to strike, but the main character dodges him. After which, she claims that she asks once, and also wonders who hired them. And what do they know about her? The red-haired guy is wondering who this girl is, considering she didn't even blink. He also screams, does this idiot really think that he came to wrestle with her and he will grab her, and that will be the end of it? Well, the main character immediately grabs him by the neck, after which he insists that she no longer knows who their informant is. However, the fact that he doesn't quite understand the field is unfortunate, as it's an extremely useful skill. The girl also believes that she is expressing herself clearly, and claims that they have picked the wrong person. A little while later, the girl is already in front of the prince, and he says that it is clear. And just a couple of hours later, he again has the honor of seeing her face, but this time as a suspect. One way or another, he instructs the knights to deal with the attempted kidnapping, since violence was not only used by Paresa. Well, after which, he also says that everyone is free, and he and Paresa still have something to chat about. When the knights leave, the main character wonders if His Highness has anything to tell her. The guy replies that yes, and this concerns those who attacked her, because instead of plunging all three of them into eternal sleep, she spared them. Paresa argues that of course, she couldn't openly injure people in a public place, and besides, they weren't that dangerous. But the guy approaches her and claims that this is not the issue. As a result, she was hurt, and if something like this happens again, then she should not remain silent and tell him. After all, he swears that he will get rid of anyone who dared to touch her quietly, and no one will know about it. The main character then turns to His Highness and asks him not to make such terrible promises. After all, how can one squander one's strength on such dirty plans? But the guy insists that he can't think of such things when it comes to her. Paresa says that in fact everything is fine with her, because the aura of the sword also gave her the ability to heal. She didn't talk much about it because she thought that people might find it strange and she would worry him unnecessarily. The girl also asks for her forgiveness, but claims that Her Majesty is waiting for her. And the prince claims that, by the way, since she started talking about her mother, it's not the right time for them to settle accounts with her. After all, he'd helped her in many ways, and so he hoped for a fair reward. Paresa wondered what the prince wanted from her. To which he replies that it's nothing special, and there's nothing complicated about it. After which he asks if the girl can call him by his first name. The main character is surprised by this, and wonders if he really wants her to call him by his name. A little while later, the girl leaves the room, after which the knight asks if Lady Paresa has already finished. The main character then asks if this is Sir Lauren, and then turns around, and she says it's time for her to go. The knight turns to His Highness and assures her that he will stop by. The man replies that yes, and Sir Claude Laurent can come in. The boy insists he has no idea what they were talking about, but asks him not to take his anger out on him. Well, the prince is just wondering what he did wrong, and he would be so happy if they called him by name. He also says that it would be necessary to order all the maids to memorize the list of names and surnames of the members of the imperial family, Generally speaking, this is the most integral part of the training of any nobleman, and in connection with this, there is no need to teach this to maids of noble origin. However, the knight claims that if Pareza is from another empire, then she may not know this at all, and probably for this reason she did not fulfill his request, even if she herself was not against it. The prince then says that's it and let him not continue, and also asks what Claude thinks and whether she might be attracted to him. The knight insists that it depends on what he wants to hear from him, since he serves the prince after all. But the prince tells the knight to answer honestly, as if he were his friend, after which the guy claims she looked nervous and he has no doubt she likes the prince. At this point, he's clearly not in the kind of relationship that allows for unrequited love. He also asks what the prince did to win her favor, to which he replies that he danced with her at the ball. The knight asks if there was anything else, to which the prince replies that there was nothing else in particular. And this is unthinkable, because usually one dance is more than enough for a lady to develop romantic feelings for him. And he knew that you, Parez, were something special. At this time, the guy looks at His Highness's feet and thinks that it will be a pity for him to have to, well, anyway, judging by what he saw. Is it really that impossible? The main character is confused at this point and wonders what's wrong with her, because she needs to wake up. A little while later, the guy asks if his aunt is talking about the ball, after which he says that everyone will be happy to come to it and there is no point in the Duchess asking his advice. The woman claims that the guy is of course right, because he doesn't need advice, but she is obliged to ask since the ball in his honor will be held soon. And wasn't he looking for a bride for himself? Because she was always thinking about how she could help him because she was his aunt. This ball was aimed at choosing a spouse and the heir to the throne, as well as other aristocrats who had reached the age suitable for marriage. They give points in order to find a partner, and this is an event that attracts many unmarried ladies and gentlemen from all over the country. There, the luckiest ones sometimes get a unique chance to improve their status. Unfortunately, he doesn't want to put up with anything from Togo. Not to mention that recently such things have not been her prerogative at all, and the woman again wants to secretly take over her mother's business. At this time, the Empress plays the piano, and a little while later she draws everything. The main character understands that the stress level is critical, and is there really no other way? At this time, one of the maids turns to Her Majesty, but she only asks what she wants. The main character claims that she will talk to her and return, after which the maid says something. The main character then turns to Her Majesty and claims that a guest has come to see her. The woman replies that she does not wish to see anyone. Parez asks the lady to meet her, because this is the lady she mentioned a couple of days ago. At this time, the girl with green hair is sitting in the living room, and Her Majesty comes in there, and she also apologizes for keeping them waiting. This makes the green-haired person uncomfortable, and the Empress asks if she's the same student of Viscountess Venus, to which you reply that yes, and her name is Nora. The girl claims that it is a great honor for her to meet Her Majesty. The lady with pink hair claims that she has been in a bad mood lately and understands that the dress was not ruined by the will of the Viscountess, but many of her plans were ruined. Nora claims that she is truly sorry, and the woman sighs and also claims that now it doesn't make any sense anymore. She also says that Pareza Whitney just invited the girl there, after which she asks what she has there. Venus's student claims that she is confident that she can handle it, so she asks you to rely on her. A little while later, the girl claims that if you sew the fabric torn from the dress in this way, it turns out to be a popular design today, after which she will be interested in Her Majesty's thoughts. The woman replies that the girl is a genius and is speechless, as it's immediately obvious she's the Viscountess's best student. She would never have thought it possible to create a new dress from scraps of an old one. And it's not just fabric that can be borrowed, after which she suggests they borrow pearls too. The main character stands to the side and realizes that she can't even make out half of it. But she is glad that the Empress has become better, after which the woman turns to Pareza. He also tells her to provide Nora with a guest room and to go quickly and prepare everything necessary. The student then thanks Her Majesty and assures her that she will try her best. The main character, walking down the corridor, understands that everything should be fine for a while and she too will be safe as long as she is in the Empress's palace. But then the main character sees another maid, and she wonders if the lady has returned so soon. The main character asks what brought Anna there, and that she can't get back to the maid's dormitory from there. The girl replies that it's all true, but she was asked to give this to Pereza. The protagonist asks if this is really a gift box, and then asks who asked her to give it to her. The maid replies that it is His Highness the Crown Prince. That same evening, when the protagonist opens the box, she sees a dress inside. She also wonders why he suddenly decided to give her a dress, after which everyone sees his letter. She opens it and then reads how the prince wrote that perhaps the letter was stupid on his part, and that's all because of it, that he could call her to his office at any time. Of course, he would always do just that from now on, but today he was a little busy. And it was nice to receive letters sometimes. This dress is his gift, because soon there will be a ball, where they will organize a selection of a bride especially for him. The main character wonders if they will really give a ball at which the prince is going to find himself a chosen one. And does he really want her to come to him in the dress he gave her? At that very moment, he throws a letter at the main character, and she screams, "What does this mean? And also, why does she need to go there? Because this Balt is looking for a bride." Well, then she also notices that there is a second page and then picks it up. The prince wrote there that he decided to supplement the letter because he assumed that she might misunderstand it, and if his mother was also present at the ball, then she would certainly have to come too. The main character then thinks that's it, and the prince also writes that he is looking forward to this day. A little while later, someone asks if a letter has arrived from the Lantius Empire. The man replies that yes, and it is addressed to his daughter personally, and replies that this is quite unexpected, since she is not even the heir to the throne. News of the opening of the ball to select a bride for the crown prince of the Lantius Empire also reached representatives of neighboring states. One of them tore up the letter, after which the maid turned to Her Highness, and she claimed that it was impossible to tear up an official letter so carelessly, but the girl claims that she read it, and this is complete absurdity, so she simply has no words. Their women have no need to look for a man outside the borders of the kingdom, and even if there was, there is no way in the world she would send the unfortunate women to this shameful end. Each reacted differently. The princess of the Oligot kingdom asked if the handsome Prince Karen was finally organizing a ball. Her father insists it's very opportune, as he and Emperor Lantius have a planned meeting about improving trade, and he suggests they leave together. The girl then tells her father to rely on her. This news shook the feelings of ladies all along the coast of the countries of the Sea of Aegis. This ball is a harbinger of troubles to come. A week later, the prince announced that he wanted to see Parasoshka. Well, the knight claims that it won't work because he still has a lot of work, after which the prince claims that he hasn't seen her for a whole week. The knight then tells the prince to be calm and believe that the absence of news is already good news, and, after all, she is now also busy preparing for the ball. The prince claims he heard that Viscountess Venus's best student had arrived. The knight replies that she is just as capable as her teacher, which is why Her Majesty has taken a liking to her. The guy then asks if anything else happened, to which the knight replies that, as far as he knows, nothing special. And the Duchess of Erez's vengeance, which erupted immediately after the Empress's ball, seems to have quieted down as preparations for the next imperial ball begin. The prince then says that something tells him the girl won't obediently follow the plan. He also inquires about the man the messenger has sent, and the knight replies that the Duchess invited not only the heir to the throne, but all the princesses of the kingdoms in which trade is conducted will be present. The guy then says, well, that's how it is, and this is an exceptional opportunity to establish diplomatic relations. It's only natural that his aunt would organize this ball to tie him down. The knight then claims that he cannot know what their relationship was like when he remained neutral, but all of this clearly happens because he sided with the Empress. The guy replies that this is true and she must think that she has a perfect opportunity, and he is the crown prince. Therefore, it is unacceptable for him to cause unnecessary trouble, and yet, even in the worst-case scenario, their powerful state will not suffer any losses. The knight asks if His Highness has a plan of action. The man replies that he's even curious about how this will all play out, and that he's worried about something completely different, no matter how pointless his worries may be. The knight wonders if the gentleman is planning to do something reckless, and let him also dedicate himself to this matter and at least give him a chance to prepare himself mentally. The man replies that he will not do anything because he does not want to put pressure on her, and besides, he can't reveal Paris to the public, because if they get involved in a conflict at the state level and her safety is at stake, then he believes that this is what his aunt wants. Then the knight says that, as a warning to the Duchess about the action, he should choose a woman who in the future will not be involved in various kinds of gossip. If he still intends to create problems for himself, let him look at it from the outside. Is Parisa experiencing discomfort, or is she simply indifferent, and His Highness must be having an unbearable time of it? The prince then claims that the mere thought of it makes him angry, so he suggests ending it there. A little while later, the main character goes with the lamp and realizes that she is certainly glad that Her Majesty is having fun. Well, lately she feels like a mannequin, because everyone is constantly dressing her up. The girl also understands that she wants to rest already, and wonders where Her Majesty has gone, after which she sees a light on in one of the rooms and goes there and says that this is where Her Majesty is. At this time, the woman and her student are putting on a dress, and the Empress asks if the girl has left yet. She also tells the girl to wait. Vitya, she is very convenient, so let him come and take a look. Parisa agrees and approaches, and the Empress asks if the girl likes this dress, after which she asks if this is really the dress she tried on during the day. The lady with pink hair replies that this is true, and although she does not want to go to this ball, she still cannot refuse, so she also needs a dress, and it seems that her financial situation is not the best, so she prepared this dress for her. The fuss has died down, so let her just put on this dress and show up to the ball looking beautiful. Meanwhile, the student insists that when she saw this dress that day, she was amazed, it was the one. And the Empress insists that tomorrow she will need to pick out an outfit and work on it. The girl then remembers the prince's letter, in which he instructed her to definitely wear this dress, and now the girl understands that she has problems, because the Empress says that she prepared this dress especially for her. At this time, two people are sitting in a snack bar near the port. One of them tells his colleague to check it out, as a merchant from Dunamis is there. Another then says that the sea is surging so terribly that they have come at such a time, but he is also interested in what wonders they have brought to them this time. Another man then tells him to look not at the trinkets, but at the fools loading the crates. The guy then asks if he's talking about those dandies. Aren't they knights after all? And what brought them to Lantius? Another man tells his colleague to think he's just talking, because judging by their clothes, they're not ordinary guys, and these dandies are definitely from Dunamis. Well, when they see one of the knights heading their way, the man says he thinks they've been overheard. After which this knight approaches them, and the man says, "Look, this knight has excellent hearing, and what business does he have with poor drinking workers?" The guy claims that they have already guessed that he is not the most ordinary knight, and that is probably why they are careful with their words, so he will not prevaricate. And he asks if they need money for a drink, because he can generously reward them for the information, after which the guy puts a bag of money on the table, and one of the men asserts that he apparently is not wasting his time, after which he asks what exactly interests him. The knight replies that he needs to know something about the fallen aristocratic families of Lantius. Therefore, let them tell him everything they know about the Menzel family. At this time, a ball is being held in the palace, and someone approaches the Duchess of Aries. The woman then asks what kind of meeting this is, and one of the girls thanks the lady for the invitation, and also states that it was a great honor for her to receive a letter from the Duchess. The woman then greets the princesses and asserts that she dares to notice the rumors that shamelessly beg for their dignity, since they are both simply incredible beauties. One of the girls then replies that it's not worth it, since the Duchess also looks magnificent since his birthday. As always, though. Eris then says she hopes they'll have a good time, since they're her special guests today. The girls bow, then step away, and one of them asserts that she had a feeling they were undoubtedly the main characters at this luxurious ball. It's a shame for these poor things. It's so stupid of them to entertain empty hopes that in any case, it's clear to everyone that one of them will become the prince's bride. Meanwhile, the princess of the oligarch kingdom is thinking how impudent they are and how sick she is of them. A little while later, someone announces that His Highness the Crown Prince has arrived, after which the young man comes out to the lady, and they all become embarrassed. One of the girls realizes that only his dazzling face remains as unshakable as before. At this point, two princesses approach His Highness and say they are glad to meet him. One of the girls claims this is their first meeting, and that they are representatives of Jess's royal family. One of the aristocrats then whispers who they are, and the other replies that it's the princess of the Western Kingdom, if she heard correctly. Well, then another aristocrat says how impudent it is on their part to take away from other ladies the opportunity to talk with the prince, and yet despite the favor of the duchess, this is too much. While the prince is chatting with these ladies, he decides to look at the place where Paresa should be standing. But when he looks there, he realizes only his mother is there, and he wonders where Paresa went. The main character is sitting behind a chair, and the Empress asks what she's doing, to which the girl replies, nothing. The Duchess then says that the couple is here, and since the hero of the occasion has arrived, it's time to begin. The Duchess also asks the prince if he has already chosen a partner for his first dance, because if he doesn't have anyone in mind, then she will certainly allow herself to suggest a candidate, but the guy replies that he already has one. The Duchess is then surprised and asks if this is really true. The young man claims he wants to ask Princess Joanna Olagot to dance. He approaches the girl and asks if she would do him the honor. The princess is surprised by this and wonders if the prince is asking her to dance. The boy replies that, frankly, he's a little nervous and he's been squeamish about establishing mutually beneficial intercultural relationships with them since his youth, so he wonders if his proposal will be a burden. After this, the girl thinks about what to answer, and one of the two princesses asks her sister what is going on and weren't they supposed to become the crown prince's partners. But the other tells her to be quiet because there must be some kind of mistake. Princess Olagot understands that she didn't like these girls from the start and it's good that everything turned out this way, after which she extends her hand to the prince and says that she doesn't like them at all. The Empress, meanwhile, says that one could be going crazy after all the guy invited a lady from Olagoth to dance. Since when has the prince been able to think rationally? The protagonist asks what that means. The Empress replies Olagoth, Lantius, and Dunamis. These three countries have shared the blessing of the sea god and have been forming an alliance for a long time. Frankly, they have no interest in other countries, as unnecessary connections are sometimes burdensome, and a princess from the Union State is the most rational choice. And it seems Nishiana has dragged princesses from other countries into this story, so it's a shame the Quran prince simply ignored them. The main character then says, "That's it," and then watches the prince dance with the girl. She also thinks that in the end she serves Her Majesty the Empress and not the Quran prince. In this place she is not at all suitable, and besides, it would be strange if among other ladies the most ordinary servant and operationalism stood out. The girl also recalls how the last time she danced with the prince, he insisted that she had promised to trample his feet, but if she was so careful, she wouldn't be able to do it, even if she really wanted to. Paresa replied that she was doing it so as not to injure him. After which the guy told her to take his hand like this and also asked how long she planned to dance, looking at the floor. The prince also asked if she wanted to say she wasn't satisfied with her partner. The young lady understood that she had not looked at him intentionally, but now she needed to look, after which she looked at the handsome face of the prince, and he said that this was much better, and also asked if she could lean on him. After all, if she suddenly makes a mistake or stumbles, then let her trust him, because he will be able to hold her back. At this moment, the lollipop on whose dance the prince suddenly stumbles. The prince then grabs her and says that the princess seems to enjoy dramatic endings. The girl replies that it's better to attract attention than to be caught off guard. The Empress comments on how well everything is working out, but the main character turns to Her Majesty and asks if she can step away for a moment. The woman replies, "Of course." Meanwhile, the prince turns his attention to Paresa, and he sees her leaving. The girl is wondering what's wrong with her, because she feels unwell. Her face is burning, and she feels very sick, because it's somehow stuffy there. After which the lady once again wonders what's wrong with her. A little while later, she's already walking out onto the balcony. Paresa realizes it's better this way, and all she needs to do is go outside. Then, she also thinks how wonderful it is to be out in the fresh air. And even outside, they've set up magical lights. Karen Prince is the main character tonight and is perfectly prepared so she won't say anything. The girl also thinks that it is very beautiful there and she can stay there for a short time, because it is unlikely that Her Majesty will stay there. And besides, Nishiana is apparently too carried away by the ball to plot any more intrigues, and she thinks that everything will work out. But at that very moment, someone addresses the girl, and she wonders if it's the prince, after which he claims he's been looking for her. The main character tells His Highness that the ladies have been waiting for him for so long. He replies that it's okay, because he's sure they can wait a little longer. The girl then says that the hero of the occasion should not leave his place, because it is disrespectful to the guests, but the guy replies that even if it is a bride fair, this does not mean that the ball is organized exclusively for him. His absence isn't a problem, since there are plenty of other aristocrats there, and he could just excuse himself to go to the bathroom. The main character wonders if he's serious and doesn't care about his reputation. And at this time he approaches the young lady and claims that he actually came to steal her first dance, after which he extends his hand and also asks her not to refuse, because it seemed to him that he had already proven himself to be a worthy partner. The main character then agrees and extends her hand, and the guy kisses her and states that this is an honor for him. At this time, Paresa realizes that she has gone crazy. She hasn't drunk a drop of alcohol, but her thoughts are confused in her head as if she were drunk, after which the two begin to dance on the balcony. And the girl realizes that, as a knight of Bologna, she dares to rely on another man, and she can't even look him in the face. And by the way, if you think about it, he must be upset, since she didn't make the dress he gave her. The prince turns to the young lady and asks if she intends to keep looking at the floor today, and now she's offending him again. He knew she wasn't satisfied with her modest dance partner. The girl then cries out that this is not true. After which the guy claims that then, isn't it bad form to avoid eye contact with your companion? The main character is only embarrassed by this, after which the prince comes closer to her and says that Paresa did not say his name then and maybe she will do it right now. At this point, one of the princesses passes by and is shocked to see these two. The girl realizes that the prince is certainly giving in because the passions there are running high and these foolish people are acting so carelessly. Therefore, it seems she has just witnessed something incredible, and the girl now understands why the prince seemed so indifferent to her, because he already has a lover. Well, then the girl thinks that he did dance the first dance with her, but it was because of the union of their countries. But the girl thinks, why then was it necessary to organize this ball? After which, she completely understands that they have a secret relationship. And His Highness turns out to be a daredevil, but at the same moment, someone from behind asks where this prince went, because he disappeared right after the first dance. Another princess then asks if they weren't given guarantees and whether Duchess Eris might have deceived them. The other girl insists that such a thing couldn't be true, since they only came all this way because the crown prince was getting engaged. And could someone like the Duchess really lie about something like that? One of the princesses, meanwhile, is thinking that this is a problem. At this rate, the prince and his beloved will be caught, after which she wonders about something. Well, he finally understands, to hell with him, and let the crown prince keep in mind that the veil of life will owe her. At that very moment, she uses her power, and one of the ladies screams, wondering where the bird came from. The main character, hearing this, screams that there are people there and pushes the prince away, after which she states that it is time for them to return, because if they return together, people might misunderstand. The guy then says that yes, and of course he will go first, after which the guy turns to the lady again, and he says he'll definitely contact her again. Then he leaves, and the main character sinks to the floor, wondering what's going on with her. A short time later, the girl returns to the hall to see Her Majesty. The pink-haired lady then asks if the girl has finally returned, then tells her to go there quickly, because since she hasn't returned, she was about to leave alone. Paresa apologizes, and the woman says, what if she suddenly sets her sights on some aristocrat? Let him just say it once, and she can pretend to be a blockhead. But the main character tells Her Majesty not to make things up, after which the girl also looks at the prince and becomes a little embarrassed. At this point, Princess Olagot sighs and realizes that she's wasted all her energy on this circus. After which she also sees someone heading along the second floor and wonders if it is Her Majesty. But they didn't even have time to greet each other, and she was already leaving. After which the girl also sees someone else near Her Majesty and understands that it is Paresa. 3 days later, the main character puts the papers on the table and claims that she is finished, and the Empress asks if she's already finished. to which the girl replies that yes, and as the lady asked, she sorts into stacks the financial reports about the prince's sick evening and the celebration of the emperor's birthday. She drew up a preliminary plan of upcoming expenses for her personal tea party and checked the estimate against the general expenses journal, and also made changes and wrote out unapproved expenses since they all fit on one page. After which the girl asks if she can be free, and the Empress replies that she can go, and the young lady immediately cries out to the Empress that then they will see each other tomorrow. The woman says it's strange, because she's somehow overly excited. Marie remains silent after this, and a little while later she cries out to Anna that she's arrived. After which the maid tells Paresa to hurry up, because she's been waiting for her too. Then the maid helps the young lady dress, telling her how beautiful she is. Paresa realizes the speed is simply astonishing, something one would expect from a professional. Anna, meanwhile, says she's especially keen to mention Paresa's wonderful dress and wonders who gave it to her. The protagonist then laughs nervously and asks if it wouldn't be better to tie her hair back, as she feels uncomfortable with it down like that. This hairstyle is so different from what she's used to, but the maid says she likes it much better and that it really suits her with her hair down. The girl also says that Paresa always braided it before, and with her hair like this, she's unrecognizable. It seems to her that she is especially worried about this, because it was the same at the ball, after which the main character says that Anna is very observant and this is amazing, and the maid replies that yes, and this can be said to be her secret weapon. There in the palace, many of even the most ordinary maids come from aristocratic families, so she, a commoner, has to put in much more effort than the others, and for this she simply needs to be better than others in at least something. A place under the wing of the highest nobility or the royal family is a tasty morsel, and it is not at all surprising that among the common people there are daredevils who hire themselves there in the hope of patronage and rarity, of course, but there have been cases when she had to please even the arrogant maids. Then the girl says she's been chatting too much and apologizes to Paresa. The main character replies that it's okay, after which she apologizes to Anna, claiming she can't help but ask. After all, in the current situation, wouldn't it have been wiser for her to follow the Duchess rather than the Empress? Anna then points out that she has no power there, and, on the contrary, has always had the opportunity to observe the situation from afar, and so she could act as her heart dictated. After which, she also throws a cape over the main character and suggests they go, as at this rate she'll be late and her meeting now is much more important than this conversation. After which the main character says that she certainly is, and thanks Anna and asserts that she will definitely repay her. Anna then smiles and asks if the lady is talking about the debt, but she doesn't look like an aristocrat at all. Well then, someone else turns to Anna and says she has something to talk about, and it won't take long. It turns out to be Marie. At this point, the main character knocks on the carriage door and claims she's arrived. His Highness opens the door and helps the girl into their carriage. He also notices that she's wearing the dress, and he claims he's happy because it suits her incredibly well. The girl then asks if the prince knows that she was actually very surprised when she received his invitation. The guy claims he thought he warned her then, but the girl insists she didn't think he'd actually do that. She also asks if he really has nothing better to do, after which the guy says that she is so naive. And he also claims that it's possible to say that, after which he says that there is one place where he wants to take her. A little while later, they are already getting out of the carriage, and the guy asks if the lady is having a hard time, since they have been climbing for a long time, and let her definitely say if it becomes difficult for her, because he will help her, but the girl answers that no, and everything is fine, because such worries in relation to the Knight of Bologna are unfounded. The only thing is, if she knew that they would go to such a place, she would have put on something more comfortable, after which they go outside and the guys claim that they are there. After all, there is simply an incredible view from there, and when they go up one of the towers, the guy claims that this is his favorite place. He also asks how Perez is and if it's a truly amazing place. The girl replies that it's an understatement, as it's breathtaking. After this, the prince claims he's been there often, and has been there since childhood. And it's also amazing that if you look down from there at the city for a long, long time, your consciousness magically clears up and sometimes you even come there just to think about everything.